Call to order. I call this regular meeting to order at 6:31 p.m. Pledge of Allegiance led by Councilmember Dean.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Clerk, roll call, please.
Mayor Wu,
Here.
Vice Mayor Menchaca,
Here.
Councilmember Chan,
Here.
Councilmember Ding,
Yeah.
Councilmember Harrington.
Here.
Closed session report. Our city attorney will now give the closed session report from the special meeting held earlier tonight.
Certainly, Mr. Mayor. The board met to discuss 3 items. The first item was identified as existing litigation. That's described as City of San Gabriel versus Sue Chen. The city council received a report from the city attorney regarding that matter, and no reportable action took place. The other 2 items are identified on the agenda as anticipated undisclosed litigation. I do have action to describe on both of those matters. There are both matters involving nuisance abatement of blighted properties. The city council unanimously directed the city attorney to proceed with a nuisance abatement action for the property located at 573 West Broadway, owner Charles Quang. Likewise, the city council unanimously directed the city attorney to file a nuisance abatement action for the property located at 400 East Grand Avenue, owner Tan Jing. Mr. Mayor, that concludes the report.
Thank you, attorney. We will now have some announcement from our chief city clerk.
Tonight's meeting is live streamed on the city's online platforms. If you wish to address the city council during tonight's meeting, we request that you please complete a speaker's card and hand it to the clerk at this time. When speaking, please state your name for the record. If you wish to receive city council agendas, please sign up on the city's website.
Approval of agenda order. Are there any objections to the agenda order? I hear none. Next item, please.
Presentations. Recognition of hairstylists providing free haircut service to seniors. Mayor Wu will make the presentation.
Thank you, Chief City Clerk. Well, I would like to personally express my appreciation to Lost Hair and the hairstylists for their dedications to serving our senior community. They provide free haircuts every month at our community center, and the service is always fully booked. When I visit, and I saw the seniors happily walking out with a new and stylish haircuts, it was clear that the expertise of Lost Hair truly brings joy to our community. And thank you again, Vivian, Eva, Angel, Lena, and Chris. And I would now invite Vivian Park, Ava Lee, Angel Lee, Lena Lee, and Chris Yan to come forward to receive certificates and of recognitions and take a photo with council. So may I invite my colleagues? Let's go.
you very much.
So from Luz here, anyone would like to speak? Please come forward.
Sure. Well, I'm just here to take photos, but do I speak? Okay, our law salon was established back
Yeah,
in
can you you used to mic.
2017, and we are just honored and very grateful for the sharing our talents in the San Gabriel community with the San Gabriel community, and especially thank you for the opportunity to Mayor John Woo. Thank you, and we are looking forward to continue to serve and to share our talents in the community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will be turning 50, but I'm still not eligible as a senior yet. But I'll be there soon, okay? Okay, so next item, please.
Larry Stevens' 100th birthday recognition. Mayor Wu will make the presentation.
Hi, Larry. Yeah. Okay, Larry Stevens, 100 years young, was born in the city of Alhambra on July 10, 1924. He was the fourth of 5 children. He attended Alhambra High School, where he served as class president and captain of his high school football team. Immediately after graduation in June 1943, at the age of 18, he was inducted into the United States Army Air Corps. He was sent to fight the war in Europe with mighty 8th Air Force 95th Bombs Group as tail gunner on a B-17 Flying Fortress. He completed 29 of his 35 missions in a B-17 aircraft, a 4-engine bomber named the Full House. After completing his 35 missions, he re-upped to continue fighting the war efforts in the Pacific on B-25. Luckily, the war ended on August 15th, 4 days before his deployment. He was married for 69 years and raised 5 children. He retired as a fire captain after 31 years with the city of Alhambra. At age 89, Larry self-published a book, It Only Takes One, Memoirs of a Tail Gunner. During his deployment with the Army Air Corps, he earned the following awards: Distinguished Flying Cross, French Cross de Croix, European, African, Middle Eastern Campaign, American Campaign, Russian Campaign, and American Air Medal, 5 ox leaf clusters. Mr. Stephen, thank you for your service to our country and your participation in our veterans events. We wish you a very happy 100th birthday. At the time, I would like to present you a certificate of recognition, followed by a photo with the City Council. Following the presentation and photo, we will recess the meeting and invite all of you join us to the lobby for birthday cake. So let's present the certificate, and can I have my colleagues let's take a photo together? Thank you.
Turn it around. We have to get up first and then turn it around. Melissa. Okay, let's go. Happy birthday! Happy birthday!
So let me make an announcement. Now we recess the meeting, and please come back in 15 minutes, which is 7 o'clock. Thank you. We will now reconvene the meeting at 7 p.m. We will now reconvene the meeting at 7:01 p.m. So next item, please.
Public comment. This is the time set aside for members of the public to address the city council on items of interest that are not on the agenda, but are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the San Gabriel City Council. If you wish to address the council, please fill out a speaker's card and hand it to the clerk. Our speaker this evening is Matt Crabman.
Hello, my name is Matthew Kratman. This is my son Patrick Kratman. He's 12, and he's in the Boy Scouts, and he's learning about civil government and that kind of thing. He also plays wiffle ball in our backyard. What I'd like to say is I'd like the City Council to promptly consider removing code SGMC 153.127. This is a hedge height code. The city has no business regulating the height of hedges on private residential property. Homeowners like hedges as they're an inexpensive and beautiful way to provide privacy, security, and noise reduction, plus they're green. Hedges accordingly improve the desirability and thus the value of residential property in the city. The current code regulates that no hedge can be over 6 feet. They must be under 4 feet in the front. Yet coyotes can go over 6-foot hedges. This presents a real danger to existing homeowners, their children, and pets. Are coyotes to be permitted to range through our private yards? Further, there is no way that the code can be practically and uniformly enforced. Is the city to send out staff with measuring tapes to determine the height of each hedge? When the front hedge reaches 4 foot 2 inches, will there be a correction notice or a fine? How much staff would you need to enforce this code with uniform justice? It's not worth the city's time or money. It would also annoy a fairly large number of homeowners in the city to micromanage their plant heights on private property. I'm one of them. The city currently enforces the code on an ad hoc basis, singling out some individuals while ignoring others. That's not justice. Remove the code, please. It should not be there in the first place. As the 4th of July has only just passed, celebrating our freedom, let homeowners be free to have hedge heights that suit their own needs. If they want a view, they can trim their hedge down. And if they want privacy, they can let it grow. This is a decision that should be left to the homeowner and not to the city. If this could be on the agenda for the next meeting, that would be great. And I will come and say more on the same subject. Okay, thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I have no speaker cards.
Okay, thank you. Next item, please.
Consent calendar. All items listed under the consent calendar are considered routine, and recommendations will be approved in one motion unless a member of the City Council or public requests separate discussion. We have not received a request from the public to pull an item.
Thank you. So would any council member like to pull an item for separate discussion? I see now. Do I have a motion for this?
I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, so motion made by Vice Mayor Menchaca and second by Councilmember Chen. Please vote.
Motion passes by a vote of 5-0.
Next item, please.
We have no public hearing or continued business this evening. Our next item is new business item A, approval of placement of Veterans Memorial Display. If you wish to comment on this item, please turn in your speaker card to the clerk now. Community Services Director Perez will make the presentation.
Good evening, Mayor Wu and members of the City Council. We bring to you tonight an item about the placement of the Veterans Memorial Display. San Gabriel Veterans Memorial Coalition, many of whose members are here tonight, was established in 2020 to honor San Gabriel's veterans and work toward the development of a memorial in San Gabriel. Throughout the last 2 years, staff has met with the group to determine a location for the memorial. Most recently, the group has decided on a location in Plaza Park. When the Memorial Coalition agreed on identifying a location in Plaza Park, Public Works staff assisted in providing the square footage of several locations on a map. Following a meeting with the coalition, they determined that proposed Site 2 would best fit the needs for the memorial. And I included the map in your attachments, and I have the map here on the display. So the arrow points to the option location which they have selected. So that's under the palm trees and near the location where we have had the flags and had the Veterans Day event and Memorial Day event as well. Staff has met with representatives from the mission to present the preliminary location of the monument, as Plaza Park is actually part of the mission property. Mission representatives are supportive of the plan and would like staff to coordinate with them on events in Plaza Park to ensure that event goers are not using Mission parking lot when there are events at the Mission, as there often are on Saturdays and Sundays, obviously. Staff has provided photos of several examples of veterans memorials in other cities along with your staff report, and I've also included those tonight. These are just examples of what other cities have and some options that we may consider. So we have City of Rosemead, City of Alhambra, City of Glendora's monument, and also City of Temple City's monument. Fiscal impact. Approval of the proposed memorial location does not have a fiscal impact. Staff has discussed that the city may cover the cost of the Veterans Memorial to honor the military branches, and the Memorial Coalition could fund Phase 2 of the memorial to include names of those who served. Staff will come forward at a future meeting with a proposed Veterans Memorial and budget. Tonight, staff recommends that the City Council approve the proposed location in Plaza Park and direct staff to identify an architect or monument company to draft a potential for both phases of the memorial. This concludes my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Rebecca, for the presentation. Does any council member have a question for the staff to clarify? I see none. So, City Clerk, do we have any public comment?
We do, Mr. Mayor. The first speaker is Alvin Sanchez.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Your Honor, Mayor Wu, Vice Mayor Denise Menchaca, City Council members, city staff. We, the San Gabriel Veterans Memorial Coalition, thank you very much for your consideration and your help with us and in realizing our dream, and that is to honor all service men and women who served in the any branch of the United States. And our proposal is to build a monument in recognition of those who served. And we will just keep everybody informed as to our progress. And we're working very diligently to make this come to fruition. And we thank you very much for your cooperation. We appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Mary Garcia.
Good evening, Mary Garcia, 1238 South Pine Street, San Gabriel. Honorable Mayor, City Council, City Manager, and City Attorney, and members of the audience. I'm here to thank you guys for taking the opportunity to review all this situation with the memorial, where we like to place it and everything. And it seems like we're one of the last cities to put this into effect. So we wanted to make sure we thank each and every one of you for reviewing this and helping us out to do this, to remember all of our memorial people that have passed, or especially Mr. Stevens tonight, celebrating his 100th birthday, being a veteran. I mean, if he could live to see this go through, he would be ecstatic. So thank you again very much.
Thank you.
I have no more speaker card.
Okay, thank you, Chief. Chief City Clerk. So it's now time for council discussion. Who would like to start?
I'll start. Thank you. First of all, I just want to thank the coalition for your patience and for really working with us. I know that initially you had another location, but I think, after having some dialogues, especially with Rebecca, I think we came to a really good place. And I'm excited about this. I definitely will be voting to approve the recommendation. The only thing I was just going to mention is that initially, when you look at the map, you think of a place that should stand alone, and I looked at option 3, but realistically, there's so much traffic, so much noise there. It just wouldn't work, but on a map, it looks good. You just have to know the area to understand that is not the best place. I guess for the public, just to kind of realize, and it looks like it's bigger than the other location too. I guess it is, but I'm happy that you walked out there. I've had a chance to walk out there too, and it is a very, it's central because the plaza, the Mission, that is the epicenter of our city. I mean, that is the heart of our city. And the memorial and all who have served belong to be, should be there in the center. And so that was the only thing I was going to mention, Mayor, that I just very happy that we've kind of finally come together. And that was all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Happy Vice Mayor. So who else? Yes, Councilmember Chen.
I'm also very happy and excited that this thing is the memorial is moving forward. Yeah, I'll say, the only thing I would say is that I have my certain talents, but visual design is not one of them. So I think I will have to defer to my colleagues. Although I will say that I do like the round design, such as what you see of City of Glendora and City of Temple City, kind of having that rounded wall. So that just looks nice to me, and I wanted to have, make sure that it has room for expansion, and I do like the idea of having a flag for each branch, and just to remember to also include our new Space Force now, because I guess that's our new branch for the future. So yeah, that's all I have to say, and looking very much forward to progressing with this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Chen. Who's next? Yes, Councilmember Harrington.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to thank the coalition as well. They've been very patient and very persistent. And sometimes it's not an easy thing to do when you have a vision like this, but I do appreciate all your hard work and all the effort everyone's put in, so thank you. And then as well as staff for getting this pushed forward. I really do appreciate our staff puts in a lot of work as well. So just looking forward to get this groundbreaking, so thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Harrington. So Councilmember Ding.
Yeah, for me, it's still like a memory. It's back to I served the community service. That time I already have chance to talking about the very coalition, the recommendation. But that time it's another place, and finally I really like our the staff have a recommendation in the Plaza Park. It's actually this is really good location, and then next to our city hall, and also background have our city with a mission. So it's a really good idea. So yeah, it looks like take long. It's like 4 years already, but finally we're moving forward, and I personally it's really happy on the staff recommendation for the Plaza Park, and another for the design, I really wish for the future we can expand it like a memory for the name of who serviced our country. So you have the expansion. I hope the design have the expansion to put on their name on that, so we can remember them to respect to them to since they are the service for our country and especially like our city of San Gabriel resident too. Yeah. So yeah, I happy to just work. Hopefully, staff can get the good architecture to have the good design for us, and show our city and the mission. Okay, thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Councilmember Ding. So I have something to conclude that I would like to thank my colleagues and the city manager, Mark Lazzarato, and our city staff for making this plan of having our own Veterans Monuments a reality. We had our first Veterans Days on November 10th, 2023. Our first Memorial Day ceremony on May 25th, 2024. And our first Independence Day celebrations with 400 drones 2 weeks ago on July 3rd. So with all three iconic patriotic events now part of our routine calendar, the last pieces of puzzle is the Veterans Monument to remember those fallen heroes who safeguard our country. So the chosen location at the Plaza Park for erecting our monument is ideal. I look forward to seeing the design and making everyone who lives in the city of San Gabriel feel proud to be a resident here. And thank you to our San Gabriel Veterans Memorial Coalition. And we're finally approaching the goals that we have been pursuing. Thank you very much. Yes, Vice Mayor.
So before I make the motion, I did want to bring to everyone's attention, Councilmember Chan did mention it. I think we're going to be one of the only ones that actually have added that new branch, the Space.
Space Force.
Space Force.
Space Force.
So that will kind of distinguish us, because when I spoke to some of the other council members, they don't have the funds right now to update it, to add, or the space. And so that's kind of exciting too, that we'll be the first ones to recognize, at least in the area. I'm sure throughout the country, and there might be others, but in the area, we'll be the first one. So anyway, with that, I wanted to make the motion to move on the staff recommendation.
Okay, motion by Vice Mayor Menchaca.
I second.
Second by Councilmember Lee. Please vote.
Motion passes by a vote of 5-0.
Thank you, and thank you again for your services. And next item, please.
Acceptance of Cannabis Tax Fund Grant Program funding in the amount of $184,978. Resolution number 24-38. If you wish to comment on this item, please turn in your speaker card to the clerk now. Police Chief Elizalde and Sergeant Dan Gosserand will make the presentation.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council, Mr. Lazzarato. I'm before you tonight on an item that would normally be a consent item, the acceptance of a grant. So I had to use a ruse to get my sergeant here. So yes, Dan, this is about you and the grant. I wanted to take the opportunity to highlight Sergeant Dan Gosserand.
Just promise them the free cake, right?
There's plenty out there. I wanted to take the opportunity to highlight his dedication and his tenacity in his work ethic. Since I've been here, he has been a very strong and good leader for the organization, helping me. For the most part, he doesn't like to take credit, thus the ruse to get him up here on a open business item. But again, I'll let him speak to the cannabis tax fund grant that he was able to secure in almost $185,000. But again, just wanted to take time and an opportunity to recognize one member of my staff. There are many, many more, but tonight, since this was on the agenda, I wanted to take this opportunity to recognize Sergeant Dan Gosserin, for all of his hard work, his dedication to the organization and to the community. And with that, Dan, now you can present your tax grant.
That was a good one. So I get some talking points ready and all that, and I was like, all nervous for that, but thank you, Chief. Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council, Mr. Lazaretto, everyone. Thank you for having me here tonight. The staff report's been submitted. This is a new grant for us, for the City of San Gabriel. Several other surrounding agencies have secured funding for this, and when I found out about it last year, the application deadline had passed, so I jumped right on, but it was just a little too late. So I said, we'll be ready in January. So this January, I was able to put together, with a big learning curve, an application that was sufficient to secure almost $185,000 that would go to specifically DUI enforcement and police equipment to assist us with the mission of preventing DUI and DUI drug driving. The cannabis tax grant comes from the CHP from Prop 64 and has been allocated to local agencies and organizations that are doing their best to minimize that danger that we have in our city. We've had several fatal crashes involving drugs and drunk driving. Thankfully, well, we don't want any, but they've been solo vehicles recently, but we've been able to keep that under wraps due to our OTS grant and enforcement. My team has done a great job of enforcement, education. We do community presentations with the chief and talk at the town meetings and different community groups such as Kiwanis and the youth leadership program that our Community Engagement Bureau has been engaged in. So we do our best to get the education out there. Our DUI checkpoints have been very successful. The goal of those is to educate the community. It's not such an enforcement. Everybody thinks it's a trap to get everybody to drive through the city and catch you. We advertise those very widely. We advertise well in advance on social media, the city, Facebook, different press releases that we send out. And our goal is to educate, and when we meet people and speak with people, we hand them information about the dangers of drunk and drug driving. Anybody that has a family member or friend that's been affected by that will know that it's a very preventable, but still a very serious problem we have in our community. So we're proud that, you know, our police department's hard work and our support from our leadership has allowed us to keep those numbers down in retrospect to some of our other local communities. So with that being said, this grant in particular, specifically, we asked for a new DUI trailer to have out there for our checkpoints. Also an all-terrain vehicle to provide a smaller assistive vehicle to move like cones and move people to and from the checkpoint areas. A message board sign that you guys have seen, the one we've had that for 8 years. This will provide us another opportunity to put another radar device, but also promote our mission of, you know, reducing speeds and also drug and impaired driving. We can change that message anytime. And also a vehicle to tow that trailer. So we're currently in the process of looking into which vehicles we can, but with this amount of money, we should be doing pretty good. But it's a process, it's a lot of work, and I owe a lot of credit to my team who's assisting with all that. I can't take all the credit. They really support, they really go out and work hard. We have a good cohesive bond and a good understanding of what our mission is in traffic. If anybody has any questions, I'd love to answer them.
Thank you, Sergeant. Does any council member? Okay, Vice Mayor.
Just a quick question. You have quite a few honors here. Well, you're a vet, aren't you?
Yes, ma'am.
I thought so. I wanted them to know that. Another reason, and I'm looking at all those colorful badges. Is it Air Force or what branch did you serve? I can't tell.
The Navy, ma'am.
The Navy. Okay. And what are those other patches for?
So the air crew wings, I was an air crewman, rescue swimmer in the Navy, and also the air warfare pin. That's when you go to each station in your squadron and learn each person's job and role and responsibility. Then you sit in front of a panel and answer questions, and you work with every group from supply to air crew to the maintenance division, all the maintenance, different things, and learn what they do, and they sign off your book when they feel you're competent, and then you take questions, and when you do that for the entire squadron, you earn that pin. Yeah.
Wow. Another person to sign up for your group. I'll have questions after public comment, but thank you so much for taking the lead. As always, you're very humble, and someone's got to take the lead. And my understanding, a little birdie told me that you really took this and you ran with it, and it's a lot of money. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Any other colleagues? Yes, Councilmember Chen.
Yeah, not quite a question, but just a comment. Really, thank you for doing what was necessary to procure that grant. So it'll be great for our city. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Chen. Any other? Yes. Councilmember Ding.
Thank you. You did a good job. So yeah, and the grant is the question is, can we use if we have the more like a camera for our public safety?
So this one is specifically for DUI-related equipment.
Okay.
If we were going to be able to use a camera for one of our checkpoints or something that it's pretty specific for this particular one.
Oh, okay.
One thing I didn't mention aside from our OTS grant, this allows us to buy, it's not the Made in America only, so we can actually purchase more electronics or other things. But in the next year's grant, now that I've kind of learned how to navigate these waters,
Okay.
I might be able to look into what other options they provide, possibly
Okay.
next year in January.
But yeah, maybe some special camera. It's help. I don't know the new technology to catch they have the DUI, drug driving. So how then we can trace them to reduce the accident, right? It's easy to catch them, So hopefully they have that kind of technology if we can purchase that too.
So there is another project.
Okay, another project. Okay.
that I'm working on or trying to look into we might be able to use these funds to kind of that will measure speeds in different areas of the city, which will also like real-time speed. So sometimes when people say people are going real fast down my street, we can actually see, well, the average speed, like right now, we can pull it up and we can put it on the screen. There's companies that are doing that. I'm looking into that right now. I don't have all the details yet. I've only listened to 2 presentations on it, but we're working. I'm looking at technology. So.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Sir.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Ding. Well, Sergeant Dan, thank you so much for your service to the country, and thank you so much for your dedication to our community. I just have a very quick questions about the grant, and the grant is coming from the Cannabis Tax Fund. Have we ever received any funds like for DUI checkpoints from alcoholic beverage control? I'm just curious because from my perspective, I think DUI is people, they drink alcoholics and they're not able to drive, but they drive. But what about for ABC? Because I have participated like twice of your the DUI checkpoints on St. Gabriel Boulevard. And I saw that we had trailers, and I was sitting there, and I saw that we had some observers the young, like candidates, they were helping out on, maybe writing some report or anything, but that fund is from federal, is that correct?
Correct. Currently, our Office of Traffic Safety grant, we do mostly operations. We do procure equipment. Like this year, we're about to get a new Harley-Davidson motorcycle in the current fiscal year, which is the federal fiscal year. So we're coming up in the fourth quarter of the federal fiscal year for the Office of Traffic Safety. And yes, for our checkpoints, we do have our explorers out, and they take information. They're not dealing with the public directly. They're kind of running messages from our secondary stations so we can keep traffic flowing. We end up pulling cars to the side for various reasons, suspended license or whatever we need to investigate. We get them off the line so we don't cause a big pileup. We're trying to be as less invasive but most educational as possible. As far as ABC goes, we don't have currently any grants through ABC, but we did in the past. Before I took over the Traffic Bureau, we used to have the undercover go have an underage person go try to purchase alcohol in different locations, or get into a bar and try to order a drink, things like that. We haven't had any of those grants really available to us recently, but yes, currently all we have is we use the Office of Traffic Safety grant, but this will be a supplement in addition to the good news we'll have we just got for the Office of Traffic Safety grant for this year, which is another sizable amount we just found out, so.
Thank you, Sergeant. So just for public information, besides drinking alcohol and drink and drive, so how about for those people who smoke weeds and drive?
Correct. So this drinking and drug driving, so that would be considered a drug driving. It's all under the DUI, driving under the influence. There's different sections of that code. So there's drinking DUI, which is 23-152 A and B, being over a .08. And then there's also the drug section, which could include not just cannabis, marijuana, but also taking too many prescription pills. We've had people vaping different combinations of drugs, methamphetamine, different things like that. So any impairment that affects your driving safely is considered driving under the influence, and we do have Officer Cortez is one of our drug recognition experts, and he's looking for everything. So the more people we get trained up that are experts, I myself went through that class, and we've had several others in our department. We try to send at least one person each year. That way, the more we know about impaired driving and what to look for, it's not just alcohol. It could be alcohol combined with marijuana, cannabis, all kinds of different combinations, and usually it is. So being able to recognize those signs and the training and confidence to get those people off the roads that are that's protecting our community the most, because there's a lot more that goes undetected.
Thank you very much. And now, Chief City Clerk, do we have any public comment?
I have no comment cards.
Okay, so thank you, Sergeant. So now it's time for council's discussion. Who would like to start?
I'll start. Actually, I was going to ask about that because the name of the program, I think, is so kind of deceptive. At first, you read it and you're like, well, what is San Gabriel doing here with cannabis? But I'm glad you clarified it's really any substance abuse, which includes prescription drugs, anything that under the influence. So thank you for clarifying that. I was just going to, I was looking at the letter itself, and it just says here that, on behalf of the FCHP, and it says, is conditionally approved for Cannabis Tax Fund Grant Program. What does that mean, conditionally? What other conditions do we need?
Your approval. So, yeah, they're willing to give it to us if you're willing to accept it.
They need us to say yes.
Once it's approved
Why would
by
we
you,
say no? Okay, that's what it's meant. And then, yeah, it's very specific here. It says the agency to reduce and mitigate the impacts of impaired driving in your community. So thank you for clarifying. It's everything, really.
Yes, ma'am.
And that was all I had. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Who's next? Yes, Councilmember Chen.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
No, this all looks really good. But I just had one technical question for maybe Mark or City Attorney. I see that let's see, near the top of page 2 of the staff report, it says that the request to purchase equipment authorized under the program will be presented at a future date. So I guess my question is, why does there need to be separate approval for, to accept the funds as a first thing, then a separate approval to authorize the spending and the overtime and the equipment? Why couldn't they be all just one thing? And just technical question, that's all.
Thank you, Councilmember Chan, and I'd be happy to answer that. It's due to the way that we bring money into our budget from our revenues, and then the way we have to buy equipment or programs or anything like that. We have to get bids for all of this, and Dan was under a very, very short time frame in order to get the grant. So the thinking is, let us accept the grant. We have a list of what we can use it for, have council approval of that funding, and then staff can spend the next several months getting bids and ideas for the procurement, and then we'll bring those back to council for approval.
I see, because of the bid process, and, okay. Thank you. Appreciate that. That's all I have, so I yield. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you, Vice Mayor Chen. Who's next? Councilmember Dean.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. It's, first time I read it, it's same reaction that our Vice Mayor. It's Cannabis, the tax fund. But it's really appreciate like CHP, and then then you find this kind of grant. It's really like and then after I talk to the Mark and I understand it, so this is just like a wellness for our city. If just in case some like a resident or whatever, they maybe they buy the alcohol or drug goes through our city, so help a city to protect our local resident to not to become the victim from them. It's really appreciate that this kind of idea. So for me, it's a really appreciate, and another way, I want to like make a motion to approve it. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Dean, and Councilmember Harrington, please. Oh,
I'll second for him.
okay. So yes, there's a motion that's been made by Councilmember Dean and second by Councilmember Harrington. Please vote.
Motion passes by a vote of 5-0.
Thank you again, Sergeant Dan.
Thank you very much.
Next item, please.
Discussion regarding short-term rentals and related fees, standards, and regulations. If you wish to comment on this item, please turn in your speaker card to the clerk now. Community Development Director Cervantes will make the presentation.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Staff is seeking direction from the City Council tonight regarding a use known as short-term rentals. Short-term rentals are generally defined as residential units that are rented or leased for a period of 30 or less days. The City of San Gabriel currently prohibits the use of short-term rentals. All rental agreements must be for a period of 30 or more consecutive days. Short-term rentals are also prohibited by the city, as mentioned, but pursuant to 3 code sections. Through the newly adopted accessory dwelling unit code, through the urban lot split, or also known as SB 9 ordinance, as well as through a general prohibition by fact that the permitted uses does not list short-term rentals in our code. It's also worth noting that the platforms, the online platforms that are provided via Airbnb, VRBO, and the likes also list cities' regulations on their websites to let the customers know of any prohibitions or general development standards for any city regarding short-term rentals. The city does plan to have that dialogue with several of those companies so that they list our regulations on their platforms as well. Looking at a survey of surrounding cities, staff did find or note that the city of Rosemead as well as Temple City currently prohibit the use of short-term rentals, while the cities of Alhambra, Pasadena, and Monterey Park permit short-term rentals with certain development standards or regulatory standards. It's important to note that the city of Alhambra is in the process of a code amendment that would add a registration process to short-term rentals, as well as a fee and additional operating requirements. Some of those standard provisions that are found through many cities' ordinances, as well as procedures, are included here in this list. For example, limiting short-term rentals to hosted primary residence only, require short-term rentals registration process, require a TOT payment or a business license process or payment, require annual reporting to City Council, as well as the important on-site safety inspections as part of the permit issuance process. Others include requiring a hosted or unhosted process, as well as requiring a notification process for the short-term rentals. Some of the impacts regarding short-term rentals, just a quick survey that staff performed as they drafted the staff report. Looking at the platforms for Airbnb as well as VRBO, we're able to find at least 68 short-term rentals listed or advertised on those sites. But a Google Map search of vacation rentals finds a significant amount more than what is listed on Airbnb or VRBO, upwards of at least 100 properties or more than that. Also important to note that the short-term rentals can be a whole slew of different types of opportunities or rental opportunities. Not just single-family homes are being rented as short-term rentals, but hotels are being offered as short-term rentals, as well as the rental opportunities for a single room inside a single-family home are also being allowed. So with that said, staff is recommending the council discuss the topic known as short-term rentals and direct staff to continue with the prohibition of the use and return with a code amendment to modernize our current short-term rental ban. Alternatively, the City Council may direct staff to return with an ordinance that permits short-term rentals, as well as include any regulatory process such as what was listed in the prior slides, any potential fees for application, as well as a registration process. So with that said, I open for questions.
Thank you, Aldo. Does any council member have questions for Aldo to clarify the report? Yes, Councilmember Chan.
Yes, Aldo, thank you. Always a very good presentation. But just a quick question regarding clarification for me and possibly the audience. What is your definition and difference between hosted and unhosted? What does that mean?
Great question. So hosted means that the property owner is on site, living on the property along with the tenants. And unhosted is the complete opposite, where the owner is not living on the property.
So hosted would mean like you are the roommate. Yeah, like you're renting a room and you're living there. The owner or host is living there and the short-term tenant is living there.
That's correct.
And unhosted is just a house they would rent and they would just let the tenant live there on their own.
Correct.
I see. Thank you. That's all I have for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Chan. Anyone?
Just have a quick
Ms.
question.
Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. You mentioned that Airbnb and VRBO would list the regulations by city. But does that prevent anybody from still signing up?
That's a great question. It doesn't prevent someone from signing up because it merely lists the regulations. In fact, it's very difficult to even find those regulations on their sites. So once you find them, there's a whole slew of links that link cities' websites with reference to their short-term rental regulations, but it doesn't necessarily stop someone from renting those properties.
Because in a perfect world, they should shut it off right away when it says San Gabriel.
Correct.
But, they want the money, so. Okay, thank you. That was my only clarification. I'll have more questions afterwards.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Who else? I see none. And Chief City Clerk, do we have any public comment? Okay, so now it's time for council discussion. Who would like to start?
Okay.
Vice Mayor.
I'll continue on. So let me start with the hotels to kind of make sure I understand this correctly. So the Sheraton and the Hilton, they have 21 days or less. Is that the case, or do they have also 30 days? Which ones do they have?
And Will, correct me if I'm wrong, I think there's a 21-day regulation regarding a business license requirement.
Okay.
Not so much as a tenancy. The 30-day limitation at the moment is really just on single-family properties, duplexes, triplexes, apartments, that sort of thing.
Okay, because you had mentioned that when you did your search, the hotels were mentioned.
One of the interesting things I found was just under VRBO or Airbnb, there's an actual listing of a hotel on the sites. So I felt that was a little interesting to go about that way.
Okay. But we have a new hotel that will be built one day, and they do have condo projects, residents, don't they?
Correct.
The new one.
Correct.
Okay, so then, anything we decide tonight, would they be subject to it also, even though it's part of a hotel, it's a residence? They would also be subject to it, or not?
In terms of the condominium units, they're planned for condominium units at this point. Those would be subject to our current ban of short-term rentals.
Okay,
They would have to be leased for at least 30 days or more.
okay, wanted to get that clear. And so, right now, are we trying to be much more active with our enforcement versus reactive? Because right now, it just seems that unless someone reports it, you really don't know.
We are reactive when it comes to Airbnbs or short-term rentals because, as I mentioned, they're very difficult to find on their platforms. Now, looking at the Google Map search option of vacation rentals, they're a lot more forthcoming to the actual site address, but there are hundreds of those. And so a program that we can go forward with code enforcement is using that Google Map platform, using the addresses that are listed and notifying those property owners of our regulations. That's going to take some time given the amount of listings on that platform. The other thing to be cautious about is those listings could be very old, and so we may be sending a notice of violation to a situation where it's no longer a short-term rental situation.
So you really have to have the staffing and a process in place.
Right.
You can't just send out blindly, I guess, a notice. You have to visit them, make sure you know who the owners are.
Correct.
And have some kind of verification, documentation, whatever the case may be.
Right, rather than sending a notice blindly and
Yeah.
potentially damaging our reputation for code enforcement.
So regarding what we decide tonight, is your staff willing to be more active than reactive? I mean, do you have staffing to do that? Because I know you mentioned 68, I think it was in the report. We know it's a lot more than that
Right.
because you've done your Google, but I'm sure there's other ways to find out. Well, what is your plan?
The plan right now is to continue to be reactive because we have 3 staff. We have 1 new code enforcement officer that just started. And as a result of having 3 full-time staff members, we're able to continue, or at least to catch up on some of the follow-up inspections that we've been lacking on when it comes to a lot of the public safety issues or a lot of the life safety matters that are still pending. Given that sort of Airbnb issues or short-term rentals are not exactly a public safety matter to deal with, it's sort of lower on the enforcement pole. But if the decision by council policy is to be more proactive, then we can certainly do that. We have discovered a platform that allows for us to do that. It's just going to take some time to capture every single one of those properties.
Because I'm not sure with the agenda item tonight, I mean, I want to be able to empower your group to be much more active than reactive. I think it's a public safety issue in some of the reports I've gotten. I think it's important, but I think we all understand you need staffing.
Right.
So, that's something, I don't know if we can consider tonight, the staffing issue. Just in general, I mean, I'm trying to see how this would benefit if we would change our policy. I mean, what is the benefit? Because, all I hear is the negative. I mean, is there any benefit of making it long-term?
Well, the benefits is you codify, you legalize the.
No, I'm sorry.
Oh.
Let me clarify. Changing our policy from short-term to, instead of banning short-term, just being like the other cities that you mentioned that do permit it. What is the upside there?
Well, the upside could be a fiscal upside, meaning that we get to collect the tax.
How much is that? I mean, that really can't be that much.
Yeah, in my research of some of these cities that I found that allow short-term rentals, they're collecting a small amount when it comes to the tax. They're also collecting a level of service type cost when it comes to registration, because you're not allowed to collect more than what your service provided. Looking at $100, $150, $200 for the application process.
That's just cost recovery.
That's
like
just
you
cost
said.
recovery.
Yeah.
But the business license could be another form of collecting a fee or a tax.
And the reason I'm asking is I just want to make sure we're not missing something here, because I just can't see the upside.
Well, Councilwoman Chaco, wouldn't they also kind of count as similar to hotels, so we can capture the TOT, which is the sales tax, like 14, 18%?
But
I mean,
don't we have to go out for the ballot to get any kind of taxes?
Yeah, I guess. Yep. Oh, no, go ahead.
No, and Keith, correct me if I'm wrong, when I was going through the research for that specific item with Martin, my understanding is that requires just a change to the ordinance. Doesn't necessarily require a ballot measure for TOT.
Okay. That's correct.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah. Oh, both of you are sick here. Okay. Well, I just, let me see. I'm sorry, well, I do have a few more questions. I know that, I understand just by listening to residents that some of these are also being advertised on, WeChat and WhatsApp. How do you monitor those?
Yeah, that's, in fact, in the research of the number 68 and also the Google Maps, I discovered there are a whole lot of platforms out there.
Yeah, you're right. And those are only the two that come to mind, because I have those, but
Right.
I know they're being used also. So how would you enforce that, or how would you?
We would have to create a program to become more proactive in this case. And so likely scenario is to assign a task to one of our officers to not only educate themselves as to the various platforms that are out there, possibly have dialogue with those platforms as far as how they're enforcing their regulations of different cities. And on top of that, looking at the list of properties that are listed on their platforms and sending out notices or courtesy notices, that sort of thing. But the first step is to understand what we're up against when it comes to the platforms, and then issuing some kind of notice to those platforms indicating that we have a ban or a prohibition, or we have regulations to regulate the uses. So it's really a grassroots effort to start that kind of a program.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like. It
Yeah.
just seems so overpowering here. And then the actual enforcement process, what do you do now? You mentioned a few things, that you would give the regulations to the Airbnb or VRBO. what is the process? I mean, let's say I call somebody and I say, hey, my neighbor, it's a revolving door, there's a lot of activity there. Then what happens?
And typically what happens is we get a reporting party who notifies the city. Our code enforcement officers will then visit the site, make contact with a tenant likely, educate them as to our policies and prohibitions regarding their short-term rental. If it is a short-term rental, we could very much find a situation in which someone presents a lease that's 30 days or more. In that case, they're fine. But if they present a lease that's less than 30 days, then we have no choice but to issue a notice of violation that is mailed to the property owner. We do have a software service that we're able to find active property owners for our properties. That way we're not just sending a notice out to the actual site, we're sending it to the actual property owner. Once they receive the notice of violation, likely the first notice is a courtesy notice. If there's non-compliance after a follow-up, typically about 2 weeks or so, then we actually issue a notice of violation that may or may not include a citation as part of that. Non-compliance thereafter will likely include a third notice of violation with a monetary fine for requiring to pay. If there's absent any communication from the owners, then we proceed with our city prosecutor to get involved with the case.
Thank you. I'd like to hear from my colleagues now. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Anyone else? Yes, Councilmember Harrington, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Sorry for my voice. I think for me, it's either we regulate it like we are right now and we actually enforce the regulation, or we go the other route and have a scheme where we collect taxes and whatnot. And I know with the number, if we get a high rate of engagement and a high rate of involvement, then I think we could get a significant amount of tax. Because if we are getting that many, if you just say like 10% occupancy, then you're talking 20 or 30 units a night, let's say, at least a couple hundred. So you're talking $40 for each one. It adds up really quickly for the city if we get compliance. If we're not going to go that route and we're just going to go with the ban, I think we, just like if we go with the other way, is that we actually have to enforce. Otherwise, the ban doesn't really mean anything. And I think, I don't know if that's legal or not, but I think we really should have some sort of fine in the ordinance for booking agencies, not just the tenant, because they're the ones enabling the violation of the law. So that might, rather than say, hey, please don't list anything in San Gabriel, if we find something and it ends up getting listed through their agency, our ordinance, the first thing, we send it to cease and desist. We don't have to find them right away. We tell them, look, we found this on your site. Remove everything within these zip codes because that's ours. Or we're going to start fining you X amount per day until you prove that it's removed. And obviously we have to see the legality of if we can do that. But I think that's a ways that gets rid of a lot of the internet presence. And then it gets down to, the less big agencies doing it, then we can focus on the people that are being non-compliant. So that was just a thought I had. Additionally, going down the route of the homeowner fine, I think is okay, but like you said, they're hard to find in the first place, which I think that means, I think there's a few ways we could uncover it. I think get PD involved as far as, detectives, people that are good at finding information like that, not just code enforcement, because code enforcement is really just reactive, whereas PD can be proactive and actually look for, do some sleuthing and use their skills to find things. And they've done this in the past on other issues where, yes, it's an internet crime, but they are able to find things because they have some training and skills that lend that. So we could form our own task force, let's call it. And it could be supported by other divisions as well, with administrative analysts and helping with all that. So I really think it will be, if the goal is quality of life and enforcement, there's going to be some monetary expense on our side to do that. But if that's the route we choose, I think that's really, we should consider actually enforcing it with a little bit of teeth behind it, not just, hey, we created this great ordinance and then it just sits there and collects dust. So I think if we do go down the route of enforcement, it should be, or banning, it should actually be enforced. And I don't think it's something where we're going to be doing this like with a huge amount of hours spent for a very long time. I think there's going to be some really big upfront, you know, here's our scheme, here's how we're going to do it. But I think once the rental companies are pulled out of the picture, the amount of impact to our community goes way down if they're not enabled. Like if we can eliminate a bulk of the online presence, there's going to be some smaller stuff that happens. I mean, like listing sites and things like that where it's going to happen and it might be infrequent. Maybe it's not a permanent setup. But I mean, that's always going to happen. There's not much we can do about it. But I really think that's kind of as a council, the decision we have to make. Do we want to have it as an acceptable thing or not acceptable? And if it's not acceptable, how much do we enforce and to what extent?
Thank you, Councilmember Harrington. Yes, Councilmember Chen?
So I've been thinking about this, and I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to legalizing it and possibly, you know, attaching the transient occupancy tax, like the hotel tax, to it. But yeah, it's, you know, because as we know, it's going on anyway, and either and the whole problem here, regardless of the way you want to do this, is the enforcement side and how to enforce. And so, I mean, if we assume it's happening anyway, then we have to, you know, we as a city would be it would be beneficial to us to be able to tax and regulate it the way we do with our hotels, and at least pull in some tax money from the activity that's already going on. But then again, it all leads to the question of enforcement and how to practically enforce that. So that's kind of where I am. But I'll listen to my colleagues. I yield for now.
Well, thank you, Councilmember Chen. Councilmember Ding.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, it's actually, I agree our council discussion. It's if we ban it or regulate it, so which one we can easy to enforcement. If we ban, continue to ban, so how can you enforce? Like Councilmember Harrington. So maybe we have to notify like Airbnb or whatever the platform they have provided this kind of service. I don't think it's easy to have the fine to the property owner. It's you spend more time. It's better than go to their Airbnb and say, hey, you have this transaction in our city. We should fine you. So maybe that's if we continue to ban them. If we allow them, so we can offset, we can let their like Airbnb to, when you do this kind of Airbnb, should be plus the TOT on that and collect TLT for us. So right now it's which one it's easy for our city, the manpower to enforce the both options. That's why I hope we can get the suggestion for our staff to give to us the analysis how much the total TOT revenue we can get, or how much the fine we can get from the like Airbnb. Yeah. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, well, thank you, Councilmember Ding. Well, Aldo, thank you so much for the report. I think most of my colleagues, they do have highlight the points, which is the city is not actively enforcing the short-term rentals because due to the fact that properties are very difficult to find, but obviously it's easier, it seems like a Google or different platforms. So I don't know if that is correct statements, but prohibiting the short-term rentals, that means city cannot collect the TOT because there is no such TOT tax that is permitted. So we can, even we find those business that is running as a, like short-term rentals. When we catch them, there's no TOT tax involved, but even they have those we call unpermitted or illegal revenue. Is that correct? So what is our attitude? What we can do as a city to those business that is not permitted and still operating in our city?
Well, one thing that we do have in our code is more in line addressed as a business license violation, in that, and I'm not sure if Will's in the audience, but there is a code restriction that requires a business that's running a quote-unquote rental property that does require an assessment of a business license. I believe the rental has to be of a certain amount of time, though. What do you want to add?
Hey, as well.
So your question is, what can we do to those residents that are renting out their short-term rentals? Like, what are our options of what can we do? Can we collect the back taxes? Can we enforce a penalty? But I don't, just practically speaking, I don't think collecting the TOT for previous periods is practical. One, it would be hard to tell how much it is. I think moving forward, it sounds like it would just be some type of fine. I don't think there, as far as the non-approved short-term rentals, I think it would just be on the a fine.
Got it.
Yeah.
So there's no way that when we won't know how many years or how many months they have operated a business like this. So that's why we have no scales that we cannot identify that how much tax we should collect. Even
Right.
we know they have rent for a while.
Correct. I think for short-term rentals, just the records aren't there. It's not like the IRS that has all your W-2s that can go back for many years. On the short-term rentals, it may just be a cash payment, it may be a check, and there's really no way without them being forthcoming for us to know how much they have received in short-term rental revenue.
So is it correct that if I say that it's not necessarily that we are able to collect the TOT tax even we permit the short-term rentals? If the rentals, they still evade paying the tax, they are trying to avoid it, not register through the city system if we have those. Because I think Aldo just mentioned City of Alhambra is amending their code and asking those Airbnb or any short-term rentals to register. If they just not register, just like right now, we are still not able to collect the TOT. Is that the right statement?
I might, Mayor Wu, I might add something to that last statement, and this is a policy decision for the council on whether we want to allow or ban short-term rentals. But similar to what we do with our sales tax or our property tax, there are companies that if we do have a legal short-term rental process and a registration policy, they can monitor those for us. They have software that will monitor the listing websites and even some of those under-the-radar ones, and they can work out agreements with us to actually recapture some of the money and retain a part of that, almost like a collection fee. So there's a built-in reason for them to do that. We can pay them without the revenue part if we want them to monitor the illegal ones and to continue to prohibit. So that's a service we could use for either way. But for cities that have legalized it, there are companies that make money in making sure that registration is paid as well as TOT and everything else. When Will is talking about collecting TOT, it would be tough to go backwards and collect TOT when we have it outlawed. If council decides to allow it and we have a registration process, that would be a lot easier going forward. But in your last comment of we're still bound a lot of it by people's honor, that is mostly true, but we also would have companies that could help us if we wanted to go that route.
Thank you very much, Mark. Thank you for the presentation, but I would like to, yes.
Oh, may I ask a question quickly? Just, this is a question for Aldo. Besides what Mark just mentioned about certain special companies that have certain products for collection, when you talked to your colleagues from, for example, Alhambra, Pasadena, Monterey Park that permit this. What have they told you about how they practically enforce things? And do they have certain ways they do it? Or maybe some things that they do are not feasible for us because they're bigger cities than us? Or
Yeah, it's a conversation that I have not had with those cities, other than researching their ban or permitting policies. But they certainly have, depending on what city you want to pick, they definitely have different resources at their disposal. Alhambra certainly has a lot more code enforcement officers where they can very well have a program for this. But if the council would like for me to conduct our research, I can certainly do that.
okay, thank you. I yield, Mr.
And I would just say there's no time deadline. We don't need to make that decision tonight. So if council wants us to bring back information on revenues other cities are obtaining and companies they use and that kind of thing, we're more than happy to bring that information back so you can make a decision.
Yes, Vice
I would be in
Mayor.
favor. I would be in
Also
favor.
going to ask, I am leaning towards continuing with the ban, and I noticed that that was the recommendation tonight from staff. Why are you making that recommendation?
We have options to consider when it comes to continuing the ban. As I mentioned, developing a program to be more proactive. I do want to add, with respect to the resource questions or the staffing questions, one option that I'd like to throw out to the council is, if you recall, as part of our budget, we do now have two sources of services, consulting-wise, that provide building and safety consultation. Those two contracts also include code enforcement. And so one option that we can take, rather than hiring more staff, is we can actually increase those budget items for contractual services to bring in code enforcement officers on a contract basis and look to maybe year one really going after this process and enforcing it in hopes that year two or year three, we have a much lesser amount of enforcement that's necessary for this program.
Thank you, Aldo. Yeah, I was just going to suggest, if there's no rush per se, maybe having it more of a plan, like what you just mentioned, what would that look like? How much would that cost? I mean, it is a consulting firm. And the other side would be, if we did try to lift the ban, what is that going to look like? Look at the numbers, look at the other cities. So maybe continuing on this item so our questions can be answered.
Well, thank you, Vice Mayor. And Councilmember Chen, you have something to say?
No, I think I would agree with that way of doing it for now.
Okay.
So,
Councilmember.
thank you, Mayor. So maybe try to find out how much the fine we can, if it actually just we want to proactive to enforce the ban the short term. So maybe we can do, if staff you can research find a property owner, or how to also the find a platform like Airbnb. So which one it's more achievable, and I know that sometimes it's not the property owner to do that. They're tenant. They rent a house, but they do the Airbnb the business too. I know a lot of it's a lot of the people living on that too. Yeah. So how can we get the fine to them? So do this kind of research, then we can see what's the best way. And by the way, we have any the manpower staff to enforce the no matter the way we ban or lift the ban. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. Yes. Attorney has something to say?
I was going to say that, in particular, the jurisdictional question of proceeding with a fine against the online presence will require a bit of work on our part. So we'd be happy to do that if that's the pleasure of the council.
Well, thank you. So I really appreciate all the comments from my colleagues, and I just have something to share with my colleagues. And the reason I believe that we should not permit the short-term rentals, we just keep banning the short-term rentals because the disturbance caused by the intrinsic gas. I understand that our council members may live in a different portions of the area in our city. But I do have received a lot of comments from our local residents, and they do have those issues. And they said people staying for only a few days often bring in and out of luggage during the late night hours and early in the morning, so that causing a lot of complaints from the neighbors, and also neighbor doesn't feel safe. That with all different tourists and transients living next door, not knowing who they are. And also, thank you, Vice Mayor, you mentioned about we have 2 5-star hotels, and hopefully that the third one will be coming soon. But as a city that we try to brand ourselves now as an international city, that we should support our local hotels, that which are faithful business taxpayers. They are providing the professional service to our tourists and transients, and I think they can handle those issues when there is something happen. On the other hand, I think Airbnb or similar short-term rentals, they're providing breakfast are not approved by the health department. That could be another issue. They just cook a breakfast for their guests, and we don't know if that is health, it's like nutrition, or that is like they will make people sick, and we are not able to supervise that. Of course, that is not the city level. But another one is room sharing or the renting a bed per night. That can easily become the breeding grounds for crimes. If the rental, if these rentals claims to occupants or their relatives, it becomes challenging to penalize the unlawful operation of Airbnb or similar service. For example, that we have people just knock on the door and say, "Oh, you're doing Airbnb?" No, this is my cousin. But last week you have another cousin here. No, I have cousin global everywhere. So every week I have some cousin coming here. That is pretty difficult. So I think that is because we have no way to find out that they are actually doing business. But also the parking is another issue. For example, the hotels, they provide their own parkings, but most of the short-term rentals, they require their customers to buy day passes. That is increase the density for the parking spaces. So therefore, I would suggest that to maintain our current prohibition on the short-term rentals, even that we adopt a registration process similar to the with Alhambra, it's unlikely that the people will, those short-term rental operators will faithfully register themselves. And I think short-term rentals sometimes operate by tenants, like Councilmember Ding said, that the tenants that leasing the space is not really the owner. So they rent a property and they sublease the rooms to different people, and they manage everything, and they just cook for them and charge that dollars. But typically, those businesses, they do not disclose their address until payment is complete. So that's a very difficult. I would suggest our law enforcement, or the code enforcement, or NIS, the Neighborhood Improvement Service, that staff to browse the short-term rent opportunities online. It's just like what Elder did. So our city should be more aggressive and actively, to enforce the municipal codes. If any short-term rental is found and ignore our city request to make the corrections, I think the business owners should be liable to pay TOT from the date that issue was discovered, which being said that, for example, last month we found that they are running Airbnb, and next month we see that they're still running that. So they owe the TOT, so we have the baseline that which date that we should start collecting the TOT. I don't know if that is feasible, but I really appreciate our staff, for providing those great analysis and for short-term rentals issues. I support to continue to ban the short-term rentals. So that's my comments. Any other comments?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. You mentioned that, okay, if they still continue to do that, so I just questioned for our city attorney. So we can still penalize they have to pay the TOT if we ban it.
I think that's maybe Aldo or Keith, you can answer it.
If a hotel doesn't pay the TOT?
No, I'm a short term. If they don't, actually we find it, and they continue to because we banned it, right? They continue to the short term. So can we penalize to them pay for it.
Well, first of all, how would you prove their income? You know, that's a practical issue.
Yeah, but I just,
It seems that the appropriate way to address that would be through a penalty rather than through trying to apply the transit occupancy tax.
okay, it's used the term for the penalty, not for the TOT, right?
I believe that's right, but
Okay. So what's the amount we can do the penalty each days?
And so it depends on whether you categorize it as an infraction or a misdemeanor. In this case, it would be an infraction, so the first violation would be $100. Second violation jumps to $200, third violation jumps to $500. Typically, after the $500 citation, we involve our city prosecutor.
Okay. So if we have 1 day, it's $100. 2 days, $200. The third day is another $500. The total $800 we can do it, right? After then, we cannot.
Well, he's saying after that, then we would have a more serious criminal penalty of some kind.
Right.
Okay. So maybe that's the proactive way to let the people, if they continue to do if we still ban the short term, you know.
Well, that's why I think maybe we can continue this on and have maybe that as one of the options. I mean, I agree with Councilmember Harrington that if we're going to ban it, we got to enforce it, because otherwise it's just another, ordinance on the, so, but I think it needs to be vetted out more. I mean, great comments from everyone, but I like just to have it taken back to staff. I think they understand what our concerns are, and we just need more information.
Yeah.
So I still like to move forward with it. I too am leaning towards banning it, but I want it to be enforced also.
Thank you so much, Vice Mayor. Councilmember Harrington.
Thank you, Mayor Wu. So one thing you discussed was about the parking permits, and that got me thinking about our conference this weekend about generative AI. That's something that you could put a computer on and say, why does this address keep having different cars parking at it every few days, or Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and it's never been the same car twice?
Right.
That's something a computer could pick up instantly. Right? If we don't have the resources for that, then it's something an analyst could pick up with a lot more labor involved. But that's one of those things where we have the data. It's just how do you access it and how do you apply it? How do you use it? Right. That's a great, a great way, but that's going to catch some, but not all, but it'll probably catch a lot more than we would otherwise.
I mean, we have to keep in mind, we're not going to get 100% here.
Of course.
So, yeah. So, but we need to do more than what we're doing now.
Yes.
And again, it's because of staffing issues.
I'm so glad that Council Harrington that raised that issues, because we have a new parking enforcement company helping out, that they are able to scan the license plate. But I know that if only the license plate shows this is a stolen car, they'll be sending to the police. But I don't know if this is possible. We can get those data from the ACE parking enforcement company, that to get those data, that if we notice that this is an address that always have different cars parking in front of this area, then it could suspicious, short-term rental here. Or sometimes I have to share that in the past that we have those prostitution issues, that they rent a property and that just keep coming to different people and parking this, on the same curbside. So I think that is also a good way that we can catch those crime. So Mark, would you like to share something?
Thank you, Mayor. I think that's something we could look into and definitely come back to the City Council with information. I hesitate to say that our parking enforcement company could do that, only because I think that brings up some privacy issues if those folks are driving around and keeping track of all of the comings and goings of the neighborhoods. But we can do that through a targeted enforcement kind of programs where we get either complaints or other methods. But I don't want to come out and say, yes, we can have the parking enforcement do it, because there are other issues. But that's something we can bring back information on.
Awesome. So how about that? Just give staff the directions that we would like to get more information, and then we'll just come back and for more discussion later on. Okay, so thank you very much, my colleagues, and thank you, Aldo and Wells. So next item, please.
Human Resources Department update. If you wish to comment on this item, please turn in your speaker card to the clerk now. Human Resources and Risk Management Director Macias will make the presentation.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, Vice Mayor, City Council. Very pleased to present tonight the Human Resources Department update. There we go, I'm sorry. The Human Resources Department recruits, develops, and protects the city's most valuable resource, its employees. We are dedicated to attracting, developing, supporting, and retaining an outstanding workforce that is committed to providing the highest standard of public service to the community. The HR team, myself, Ms. Mai Lam, our Human Resources Analyst, Ms. Carla Gomez, our Human Resources Specialist, and Ms. Kimber Guiterres, our Human Resources Management Assistant. Tonight's presentation, the programs and the program outcomes and the accomplishments that I'm going to share with you tonight are solely responsible and due to the three individuals to the right of that slide. They do an outstanding job. They work extremely hard. Their work ethic, this city could not ask for more. I assure you that. So let me share our philosophy as a department, and I think this is really the philosophy of the city as well. We drive this, and we really have committed ourselves to this as a department, and so we are committed to purpose-driven work and leadership, evidence-based programming and decision-making, continuous learning and development, utilizing advanced computer systems and automation, where it's appropriate, maintaining fairness and impartiality in all circumstances, having compassion and empathy in all circumstances, and striving for organizational excellence in all circumstances. Let me go over our risk management program and briefly give you an overview of all of our risk management programs, and then immediately follow up with our delve into some program outcomes for some of our risk management programs. Our risk management consists of general liability, workers' compensation, safety training, property insurance, auto liability, and cyber liability. Just in general, risk management programs, as just stated, general liability, which consists of our property damage, bodily injury, personal injury, public officials' errors and omissions, employment practices, injury. Our workers' compensation is really just work-related injury and occupational disease, providing support and benefits for injured workers pertaining to that program. Our other insurance programs, as stated earlier, property, pollution, cyber liability, and auto liability. This next slide shows Table 1, and it's really just a really broad and high-level view of all of our primary risk management programs. This is a 5-year program outcomes, and really what I'm showing you here with Table 1 are our actual insurance premiums for general liability, workers' comp, pollution, and property insurance over the last 5 years. And the reason why I show this is because it really gives us, again, just kind of a high-level view of how those programs have performed without having to delve into a lot of the granular data, so to speak. So when we look at our total 5-year outcomes, and if we just take a look at general liability, we can see that over the last 5 years, we've had a year-over-year percent change of about 9.67%. So when we look at that, we can surmise and extrapolate that we are doing okay, but we can probably do better, and we can get that 9.9% year-over-year change lower. When we look at workers' compensation, 5-year total of $10,124,000 in premiums, we can see that our year-over-year change is about 3.03%. Better than our general liability performance, but still can probably get better in terms of overall program performance. Always working to get to 0 year net over year. Pollution, that has had a slight decrease, largely because the pool has done well and we haven't had any significant events. Property insurance is very important to note. Over the last 5 years, you can see that we've averaged 18.22% year-over-year change. There's an explanation for that I will share with you in just a bit. So when I show you the insurance premiums, there are 3 things that we really have to keep in mind. There are 3 factors. One factor is our organizational performance. That's going to drive our premiums and our performance. And so organizational performance really is us as risk managers, as an organization. That is all 100% what we do here in the city of San Gabriel. The other factor that drives our costs is going to be the pool performance. We do belong to a pool. It does help smooth out our claims and our costs. And it helps us actually procure more competitive insurance rates in the insurance market. But also, our overall claims and our overall insurance premiums are tied to some degree to the pool performance as well. And then the third factor is market conditions. And that's a factor that's really out of our control for the most part. Market conditions really do affect our premiums as well. And so we can show that even with general liability, where I'm showing you the 9.67% year-over-year change, some of that is actually attributable to market conditions that are largely out of our control. But there are still some internal things that we can probably do better and continue to improve upon, but we can't ignore the fact that there are market conditions. I think if anybody has bought auto insurance and has a really good driving record, your auto insurance has still gone up over the last few years because that's just the state of insurance and that's the state of the insurance industry today, and in particular in California. And really what highlights the market conditions the most is our property insurance. As a city, we have not had a significant property event in my tenure here, and I can't find any evidence of any significant property events in the last 10 or 15 years. That clearly is an indication of a market factor that is completely out of our control, where statewide we've had a lot of catastrophic events such as wildfires and floods, and then that's also happened on the national level. And I think you're well aware that the insurance industry is having a hard time staying in California and actually providing property insurance. So that's a factor that's completely out of our control, but it's also impacted the cost of our insurance for that. This next slide also goes over some 5-year program outcomes, and it's table 2. Shows us just really a brief and general overview of our general liability opened and closed claims for the last 5 years. The reason why I show this is because, again, at a very high level, without getting too granular, we can quantify the number of claims that we've opened and closed over a period of time, and each claim really does have a cost factor. And so, for example, with general liability, given our total premiums for the 5 years, each one of those claims we can quantify, each one of those 220 overall claims we can quantify as being about $40,000 in terms of overall overhead and costs that we can roll back up into the premiums that we've paid for those 5 years. So when we extrapolate that, we can extrapolate that if we actually reduced our claims by just 1, 2, 3, or 4, or 5 over a 2 or 3 or 4 year period, we're talking about $100, maybe $200,000 in overhead that's going to be tied to the actual premiums. So it really is significant when we look at those numbers. It doesn't look like a lot, but there are a lot of resources attached to those numbers. So again, our goal as an organization and as risk managers is to really mitigate that and to get that 220 lower each and every year as our rolling average moves forward. And we can look at the same with workers' compensation. We've had 610 open and closed claims over the last 5 years. And each one of those claims, we can quantify that as being about $16,000 to $17,000 per claim in terms of overhead that we can roll right back up into the premium. So again, if we can reduce any one of those claims, we hypothetically can reduce our actual overhead and our actual premium cost by about $16,000 to $20,000, which is significant. And just briefly, as an example, for general liability, we've had 155 claims over the last 5 years, which represents 70.5% of all open and closed claims, and those are attributed to public works. That's mostly just trip and falls, trees, road repair, but we can also expect that number to probably improve over the next few years, given that we've improved our street paving and our street paving index. So the things that we do to be proactive should actually help reduce that number over the next few years. And if we look at the workers' comp, we've had about 100, if we just kind of look at one of the notes, 190 claims, about 31.1% of all open closed claims over the 5-year period would be due to police personnel. Again, given the nature of the work, makes it very dangerous, and so we do have a higher level of workers' comp claims for public safety. And as you can see, for fire, that number rises to about 53% of all open closed claims for workers' comp. So again, we try to watch that and monitor that and manage it, knowing that each and every claim that we can reduce does significantly reduce our overhead. And one last thing with our major programs, Table 4 shows us our workers' compensation indemnity over the last 5 years. And again, this is really a major cost driver for us, and also it affects our productivity. But it's also something that we actually keep track of, and we try to monitor and try to manage as best as we can. But if you look at the last 5 years for our miscellaneous employees, we've lost about 4,605 hours to indemnity. And what that means is that is actual time off due to a work-related injury. For police, over the last 5 years, we've lost 3,836 hours to indemnity. To note, that is not too bad, to be quite honest, that when we look at the data, police services usually is a little bit higher than that. So I'm actually really pleased to actually have that number. For fire, we've lost about 31,000, almost 32,000 hours to indemnity over the last 5 years. Not necessarily an unusual number. That's kind of typical for most fire departments of our size and scope. It is significant, and again, that's the reason why we track that type of time, because we know it does have an impact on staffing and productivity. So let's transition to human resources and our programs in human resources. In human resources, we do recruitments, we do the onboarding, benefits administration, policy development and implementation. We do training and development, labor relations, and performance management. So just briefly, our recruitment and onboarding. Over the last 5 years, we've completed 117 full-time position recruitments. Things we use NeoGov Insight, which is our online platform for processing recruitments from requisition to hire. We currently use governmentjobs.com, which is the largest public sector job advertising board, and networking for city job opportunities. And we are currently using NeoGov Onboarding, which is an online platform for processing and enrolling all new hires. We just implemented NeoGov as of July 1st, 2024, and we're already starting to see the results of that implementation. We do benefits administration, very important part of what we do. That consists of things like CalPERS Group Medical, Delta Dental, long-term disability, tuition reimbursement, and all of the benefits that encapsulate what we do and provide our employees on a regular basis as part of their compensation package. Training and development, another very important program, ties directly into our risk management and also into our performance management. Major training programs consist of workplace harassment training, workplace violence and active shooter training, our implicit bias and cultural diversity training, our CPR, first aid, and AED training, our citywide safety training and department and our employee-specific trainings, for example, forklift operator training, driver safety training, and things of that nature. Our training partners, which we utilize, California Joint Powers Insurance Authority, JPIA, that's the insurance pool that we are in. We utilize Lieber Cassidy and Whitmore, and we also use the Southern California Public Labor Relations Council. We also do the labor relations for the city, which consists of employee relations, workplace investigations, labor negotiations, contract negotiations, meet and confer, and MOU administration. Policy administration, another important function of HR, which consists of policy development, implementation, and administration. So let's share some outcomes and outlook in terms of our human resources programs. So this next slide, Table 5, it shows us our 5-year recruitment activity for full-time positions only. So over the last 5 years, we have completed and made 160 appointments. And those appointments would consist of either a new hire or a promotional hire, and those appointments are based off of an actual competitive recruitment. So we've completed 117 recruitments, as stated in a prior slide. Of those recruitments, over the last 5 years, we have received 4,374 applications. So it shows there is a lot of interest in working for the city of San Gabriel, public sector in general, but really proud of that number. And if you look at the number for 2023-24, you can see a significant increase in the number of applications received, and that is solely due to the implementation of NeoGov on January 1st of 2024. So you see us going from 951 in 2023 and to 1,395 in 2020, or this last fiscal year, 23-24. The total number of applications that actually pass a process, a competitive process, and are actually eligible to be considered for hire, of those 4,374, we've had 582 candidates or applicants be successful in some type of recruitment process, meaning they passed the entire process. And again, as I stated prior, of those 552, we've actually made 163 hires, which are either a new hire, someone that's never worked for the city of San Gabriel, and they're coming on as a brand new employee, or a promotional hire from within the employment ranks of San Gabriel. So this next slide shows us Table 6, which is our 5-year hiring trend, and again, for full-time positions only. It reiterates the prior slide just a little bit, but it adds a couple of categories that help inform us in terms of what our hiring trend really has been over the last 5 years. So over the last 5 years, we've made 173 different types of hires, of which 108 or 62.4% of our hires have been new hires. Again, brand new employees, new to San Gabriel. Over the last 5 years, we've made 55 promotional hires. So promoting from within, competitive recruitment, and that represents 31.8% of all of our hires and our appointments. We have had 7 reclassifications over the last 5 years, which represents 4%, and we've had 3 reinstatements over the last 5 years, which represents 1.7% of the data. So you can see that reclassifications and reinstatements really are the exception rather than the norm. So during the 5-year period, the city has maintained an average of 181 active full-time employees. We're actually budgeted during that period between 198 and 199, but we've maintained about 181 active employees, of which 108 were new hires, and of which 55 were promotional hires, which account for about 90% of all of our hiring in terms of our hiring trend. So I think that is a really healthy number, and I think we've done an exceptional job in terms of that. Again, more of our 5-year hiring trend, but here, really going to drill down just a little bit for you and show you our hiring trend for police and fire officers. And the reason being is, there's always a lot of discussion regarding our staffing for police and fire. I think we all know it's very challenging to staff at the police and fire positions, especially the entry-level positions, and so we're always looking for strategies. And we really do want to look at our performance in terms of how we, what our hiring trend is for those two very important positions. So if you look at police officer in Table 7, over the last 5 years, we've actually made 23 new hires. Of those 23 hires, unfortunately, we've lost two probation. They just did not pass probation. And unfortunately, we've had 2 resign out. But that gives us a retention as of through June 30th, 2024. So of the 23, we've been able to retain 19 through that date, which gives us an 82.6% retention rate over those 5 years. Not too bad. Actually, I think that's very good. And then when we look at firefighter, paramedic, and EMT, over the last 5 years, we've actually had 17 new hires in that position. Unfortunately, we've lost 8 of those new hires to probation. Again, I think that's an indication of just how hard it is to get through the process. The process doesn't stop with just the recruitment and the hiring. There's still a testing process even after that. So as you can see, we've lost 8. We have not lost any to resignation, and we have lost 1 of those new hires to a lateral out. So that really gets us to 8 new hires over the last 5 years that have made it through June 30th, 2024 for a retention rate of 47.1%. Table 8 kind of is a reflection of Table 7, but it gives us a little bit of a different perspective, and it really puts into context the lower retention rate for the firefighter paramedic position. Table 8 shows us that police officer, over the last 5 years, we've maintained 39 authorized positions. As indicated in Table 7, we've retained and made 19 new hires. That actually gives us a hiring rate of 48.7%. Almost hiring and turning over 50% of the authorized positions. That is significant. For firefighter, paramedic, and EMT, we have 18 authorized positions, of which through June 30th, 2024, we've been able to retain 8 new hires, which actually gives us a hiring rate of 44.4%. So you can see, even though the 2 positions have vastly different retention rates, they have very similar hiring rates, and that's because even though it's been harder to retain firefighter, paramedic, we have more frequently performed and completed firefighter, paramedic, EMT assessments to keep pace. So it's not like we're falling behind, we're still keeping pace, and we still have a really robust hiring rate. So this next slide, Table 9, shows us our 5-year turnover trend, which is really important. And this is going to be on a citywide basis. Now, to put this slide into perspective, a healthy turnover rate would be somewhere in the neighborhood of 15%. As you can see, our 5-year turnover rate has been 10.4% citywide. That is exceptional. And then when we look at the types of turnover, the news is even better. So when we look at the types of turnover we've had, if we look at the first column, term out, which is unfortunately termination, we've had 0 terminations over the last 5 years. That's really good news. We've had 8 resignations, which accounts for 8.9% of all turnover. We've had 16 probationary releases, which accounts for 17.8% of all turnover. We've had 18 lateral outs, what I would classify as a lateral out, not a promotion, but you're leaving the organization for a similar commensurate position. We've had 18 of those, which accounts for 20% of all turnover. And we've had 23 retirements, which accounts for 25% a little more than 25.6% of all turnover. And then we've had 25 of what I classify as promotional outs, so employees that have left for a promotion. And that accounts for 27.8% of all turnover. Now, again, I think this slide really demonstrates that, first, really low turnover rate, and then in addition to that, our turnover is largely due to what I consider to be two factors out of our control, but also they're not negative factors. They're not factors that reflect poorly on the organization. Someone's either retiring or they're actually finding a promotion. And when we look at our laterals, which again, that's the number we really want to keep pace with, and we really want to manage and monitor, because that's going to be an indication of people leaving for better pay in the same type of position, or they're going to be leaving for quality of life. And we can see that that's not the case here. It's pretty much right in the middle of the data. And when we actually look at the laterals, the lateral as a factor for leaving the organization really only accounts for 2.1% of the actual turnover rate. So that is significantly low, and I think we're performing really, really well in terms of the type of turnover and just the level of turnover that we actually have. So again, like we did in previous charts, the 5-year turnover trend, Table 10 helps us drill down in terms of our police, sworn police personnel. And again, kind of shed some light on this, because again, these are really important positions. We know they're really hard to fill, and they warrant much discussion during our negotiations and when we're talking about staffing. And as you can see, our 5-year turnover rate for our sworn police ranks is at 9.4%, well within the industry, what would be considered an industry standard. The majority of our turnover has been due to retirement. We have lost 6 of our 23 to lateral outs, which accounts for about 26.1% of the data. And then we've lost 3 to promotions, lost 3 to resignations, lost 2 to probationary releases, and again, as stated prior, we have not lost any to terminations. Again, really important to note, only 1/4 of the 9.4% overall turnover rate for the 5-year period is due to lateral out, which really shows just how rare and what an exception it is for someone to actually lateral out, of which that's one of those types of turnovers factors that we really want to understand and control. So again, I think we're doing very well in that regard. And so Table 11 shows us a 5-year turnover trend for sworn fire. Again, those positions, very difficult to recruit for, very difficult to retain. And as you can see, our 5-year turnover rate for fire, or the fire positions, is at 11%. Still a very good number. The majority of the turnover is due to probationary releases, where we've lost 8 employees. That accounts for 47% of the actual turnover rate. And then we've also lost 5 to retirement, which accounts for almost 30%. And then we've lost 4 to lateral out, which accounts for about 24%. And again, when we talk about laterals being a very important factor to keep, to monitor and to control for, in terms of all turnover, laterals actually account for only 2.4% of the actual turnover rate. So again, showing that we're doing well within our sworn fire ranks, and we're not losing employees for that one factor that we know is most important not to lose employees to, which would be the lateral. Table 12 is our retirement outlook through June 30th, 2024. I'm showing you Table 12 to help us understand the cumulative impact retirement is expected to have on staff turnover over the next 20 years. So this directly relates to our turnover, and what we can expect turnover to be. Table 12 helps us understand our potential turnover based on retirement eligibility. And the analysis assumes employees will retire at the normal retirement age for their respective CalPERS formulas. So when we look at Table 12, if we look at the first column, we can see at the citywide total, we have 20 employees who are currently eligible to retire today. If they wanted to retire today, they are eligible to retire today. That accounts for 11% of all of our active employees. That's a significant number that can turn over just overnight. So our 7.5% current vacancy rate would increase dramatically to 18.5% just overnight if those 20 employees decided to retire tomorrow. In 2.5 years or less, we have 27 employees eligible for retirement, which represents 15% of our current active employees. Another significant number that's eligible to retire within just 2.5 years. In 5 years or less, we have 36 employees eligible for retirement, which represents 20% of our workforce. So just in 5 years, we can turn the organization over by 20% and lose 1/5 of our current active workforce. Within 10 years, that number increases to 61, which is 1/3 or 33% of our current active workforce. And within 20 years or less, 98 employees can retire, which represents more than 50% of our current workforce. So you can see with this trend how this is going to impact our future staffing and our future turnover rates. So this is information that we keep track of in HR so that we know what's on the horizon and so that we can prepare ourselves for that turnover and so that we can replenish and replace staffing as needed and really for our succession planning. Table 13 brings us full circle. Table 13 is our citywide staffing and vacancy report for through June 30th, 2024. So currently, our vacancy rate, citywide vacancy rate is 7.5%. To put that number into context, a healthy vacancy rate is anywhere between 15 and 20%. To be below 10% is exceptional. It really is. And so when we look at that, if you look at the table, for example, if we look at the city manager's office, currently the city manager's office has 4 authorized positions, 3 are filled, 1 vacancy for a vacancy rate of 25% in that department. That 1 vacancy is Clara's prior position, of which we are actively recruiting for and filling as we speak. If we look at police and fire, we have 36 authorized positions, of which 31 were filled as of June 30th, 2024, leaving 5 vacant positions for a vacancy rate of 13.9% for the department as of June 30th, 24. With police, we have 72 authorized, of which 68 were filled, and of which 4 were vacant, leaving a 5.6% vacancy rate for the department. Table 14, again, because police and fire, and in particular firefighter, paramedic, and police officer are so challenging to fill, I'm going to drill down on really what that vacancy rate really means for those 2 positions through the city through June 30th. So when we look at the firefighter, paramedic position, again, we have 18 authorized positions. Those are authorized in the budget. Currently, 13 of those are, as of June 30th, 2024, 13 were filled and 5 were vacant with a vacancy rate of 27.8%. So clearly, that's something that we're addressing actively now as we speak, but you can see the volatility and really trying to maintain and get that vacancy rate back down to 5 or 0%. When we look at the police officer classification, we have 39 authorized police officer positions, of which 37 filled on June 30th, 24, leaving 2 vacant for a vacancy rate of 5.1%. But it's important for me to note and for me to point out to you that although we only have a 5.1% vacancy rate at police officer, when we look at the actual filled positions, the 37 filled, as of June 30th, 4 of those positions were actually underfilled. They were underfilled with police recruits who were actively in the academy or going through training, and those police recruits do not provide a full level of service as a police officer. So even though on the chart and in the reports it shows it's filled, we also have to be aware of and cognizant that, well, we're underfilling 4 of those positions because they're not quite at the police officer position yet. So they're holding that position, they're working in that position, but they're not out doing patrol and they're not full-fledged police officers yet. So I just want to be sure that we're transparent and that we have an understanding that filled is filled, but some of those filled are actually underfilled until they actually graduate into that position. And then this last slide here, it reiterates Table 13 to put into context Table 15. Table 15 is our 5-year citywide staffing trend. And as you can see, as of June 30th, 2020, we had 194 authorized positions, of which 164 were filled, of which 30 were vacant, leaving us with a 15.5% vacancy rate. And as we move forward to June 30th, 2024, you can see that we currently have, or as of that date, 199 authorized full-time positions, of which 184 are filled, and 15 vacant, leaving us with a 7.5% vacancy rate. And as you can see, over the last 5 years, we have drawn down our vacancy rate, and we've been very successful at trying to keep it at, the 10 to 12% range. And as of this year, we actually broke that threshold, the 10% range, and as of June 30th, we did get to 7.5%. Again, we do expect that to be a little bit volatile with upcoming retirements and things of that nature, but that's really where the number is as of June 30th. And just really to note also, when we look at like the June 30th, 2021 and the June 30th, 2020 years, we also have to take into consideration we were going through the pandemic, and that really froze a lot of the things that we were doing. So the 15.5% vacancy rate is a little bit inflated, given that we purposely withheld on filling some positions at that point in time. So with that, I'd like to just share with you some of the highlights for 2023-24. So this past fiscal year, the department completed 28 full-time position recruitments and 27 full-time equivalent employee onboardings. The department maintained a 59-day completion rate for all recruitments, meaning job posting through an eligibility list. The department maintained the department and city maintained a 90.7% full-time staffing rate on average. Processed 41 new workers' compensation claims and closed 36 cases. We implemented the NeoGov recruitment and employee onboarding system, as noted earlier. We completed a total classification and compensation study RFP, and we have awarded a contract, and we're currently in the process of conducting that project. We completed a comprehensive MOU with the Police Officers Association. We renewed the side letter with the Firefighters Association, allowing the city to recruit and hire firefighter EMTs, again, trying to address the challenges of filling the firefighter-paramedic position. So with the cooperation and help of the Fire Association, we renewed that side letter to allow us to do that. We developed and implemented a hybrid hiring process for police officer recruit, which effectively reduces the 59-day completion rate for recruitments almost to zero. So it's really a hybrid program where our police staff go out in the field, go to the academy, they identify those that aren't sponsored, they identify those that could be good candidates, and they make an offer on the spot, and we do the pre-employment process as part of the actual employment process. It's a little bit of a risk for the city, but we've done the analysis to determine that the risk and to determine that the benefit far outweighs the little bit of a risk that we do take on. We reinstituted and completed an employee health benefits fair with the 2024 open enrollment. We conducted mandated violence in the workplace, active shooter, and harassment training. We developed and implemented AB 658, Assembly Bill 658, which helps the city of San Gabriel reform its retiree medical benefit. And of course, we did that with the help of Councilwoman Menchaca, City Manager Lazaretto, and also Assemblymember Michael Fong. That never would have happened without that help. Our goals for the department moving forward: update the Human Resources Information System, HRIS. That would help with really our data analysis, data collection, and really help us with making informed decisions. As we mentioned earlier, one of our philosophies is to make evidence-based decisions, evidence-based programming. HRIS helps us take that to the next step. Complete the total classification and compensation study. Also, complete comprehensive MOUs with the Police Management Group, Firefighters Association, the Fire Management Group, and the Unrepresented Employees Group. Continue to improve our methods for collecting and using program data. Again, ties into the HRIS. Continue to incorporate and utilize evidence-based methods and processes, ties into the HRS goal. Continue to improve our recruitment and retention strategies. Again, something similar to the hybrid hiring process for police officer recruit. Always looking for new methods and strategies for recruiting and retaining employees. And really just trying to be more as progressive and as strategic as we can possibly be. Develop and implement a more robust training and development program. This is something that is very important to me and the department, and I'm sure the city manager and the city. I will tell you that of all the goals that we have, that is one of the more important ones. And full disclosure, I feel like we can do better in terms of a more robust citywide training and development program, and so that really is a very important goal for us. Also improve our general liability program administration and outcomes, as discussed earlier. Every claim we can attach an actual dollar amount to, and think about each and every one of those claims as being either $40,000 or $16,000 and being very significant, and just each and every one of those claims ebbing away at them, knowing that that's going to have a positive effect on our bottom line. Improve our workers' compensation program administration and outcomes. Again, same thing. Ebb away at those claims, reduce the indemnity, because the indemnity does drive so much of the lost time, and then not just on top of the lost time, the lost productivity, and then the increased costs associated with that. And then continue to champion organizational fairness, equity, and excellence. And with that concludes our presentation, and I'm open for any questions.
Thank you very much, Edward. This is a great presentation. It's just so much information. But, great job. And so, does any council member have any question for staff to clarify? Yes, Councilmember Chen.
All right, Edward, thank you. Great presentation, a lot of data. So,
Yeah, it is. It is.
But no, it's good information. Thank you. Just a quick question. On your table 10, the 5-year turnover trend for sworn police, why do I not see a line item here for police chief for Harris and when he left? Is it because he was replaced by Chief Elizalde and so it nets to zero, or is he not shown here as a?
I think you see that as a lateral.
Okay. So, but it's not listed here as a line item for police chief, and then his number would be under lateral out?
Correct. That is correct. So I didn't list the chiefs in either of the fire and or police data.
Oh, I see. So it's, all this is anybody under the chief?
Correct.
Oh, I see. Thank you.
Correct.
Yeah, I was looking at that. Hey, I know we lost Harris. Where'd he go?
And you also see Captain Fabian Valdez in there, but he's there as an actual promotion. So it lost in all the data. There are names attached to it. So the one promotion in police, that it was a loss to turnover, that would be Captain Valdez when he left. And then one of the laterals would have been Chief Harris.
I see. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Chen. Who else? Okay. So, Chief City Clerk, do we have any public comment? No. So it's now time for a council member to discuss. Yes, who would go first?
I'll go.
Vice Mayor.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did you?
I don't have any comments at this time.
Oh, okay. First of all, I never knew you were such a statistical data machine here. Boy, there's so much here. And I appreciate the passion. You really live and breathe HR, so thank you. We're very fortunate to have someone of your caliber.
Thank you.
So thank you, as well as your staff, but as always, very humble also. Never,
Thank you.
never compliment yourself. I guess you can't, but anyway, but thank you for your leadership. I do have quite a few, but I'll try to go quickly, because I know I'll be respectful of time. Regarding, I was going to mention the impact of COVID, just because I'm probably a little sensitive. I was mayor at the time, so a lot of these numbers are so skewed. I'm not sure if it would be wise to put in the future like little asterisks, COVID, because there is no trend there. I mean, there'll hopefully never be something like that again.
Absolutely.
So it does skew the numbers, but not sure how to do that except for a footnote maybe.
Yeah, I think I could have added a footnote.
Yeah, just to remind people, because people are forgetting. Regarding the programs you mentioned, the recruitment programs, there's, let's say one of them is NeoGov onboarding. I guess that's the new one.
Yes,
Is there a fee associated in using that program?
there is. We do have an annual licensing fee and user fee, and it's based on payroll, amount of payroll.
Okay.
And they extrapolate the amount of payroll and do an algorithm that tells them how many recruitments we'll do, both part-time and full-time.
Is it like 10%, 20%? Is there a percentage that they charge of payroll?
No, it's a flat fee.
Oh, okay.
And so the fee ranges from, our first year was in the $9,000 range, and it's going to increase to about $13,000 and flatten out over the next 2 or 3 years.
Okay.
And that is only about 20% more than what we were paying prior for a very outdated and really manually based system.
So that was my next question. So when we have so many applications, you said 4,374, do these systems filter or have, I know, there's specific words that it could pick up. I mean, is there a way, because your staff is small. So if we have that many applications, you can't sift through it. So does it have a tool there to help, identify those that really have the qualifications versus someone that's just kind of blindly submitting applications?
It does.
Okay.
It's very
Well,
robust.
then it's well worth it.
Yes, it's very well worth it, and it really will provide us with even more program data.
Okay.
Yay.
So you,
But
you can keep that for yourself.
yeah, I will. But it does help us filter and
Okay,
identify
good.
the better candidates sooner rather than later. I guess, for lack of a better phrase, it helps screen out the noise. And
Okay.
helps us really focus in on those that we should be spending more time and resources on.
Because, for example, I think with the position that Mark has flown, you got some very high numbers of applicants for one position.
Correct.
And so I'm,
132.
yeah.
And I would surmise that with the prior system, we may have gotten 30.
Okay. So you're getting the numbers, but again, are you getting the quality? That's where I was focused on.
And that will be, in the next update, we'll try to show if we have actually increased in quality. We just haven't had enough of a sampling to be able to show that, but I think that is a worthwhile metric to look for. And I would surmise that, given the volume, even just 1 or 2 more high-quality applicants significantly increases your number of quality applicants twofold, because oftentimes for a recruitment like assistant to the city manager, we might only bring in 6 to 7 for a test, and we may only get 2 or 3 that actually pass the exam. If you can increase that 2 or 3 to 4, we are talking about a 25% increase in quality apps, and that is a significant increase. So you're increasing your choices and options by 1, which doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're only getting 2 or 3, that is a lot. And so maybe that turns into 1 or 2 more quality applications. Even though you're getting a lot more applications, you're still getting the quality applications, which is really important. That's the number that we really want to focus in on and see if that's what's going to happen. And I'm willing to bet that that is what is actually going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, we're always looking for that diamond in the rough, but I'm just concerned with so many applications, you know, that you have everything you need, the tools, your staff has the tools to really get the best candidates.
It's the magic of AI.
Yes, well, I'm not sure about AI, but we still need the humans there.
We do.
But along those lines, you know, recruitment and retention, there are challenges. You know, what would you say are the biggest challenges? I guess we can start with recruitment and then retention. I mean, you don't have to, I mean, is it salary? Is it location? Is it, you know, what do you find to be the biggest challenges for recruitment in general? Because obviously, when you go by department, you know, there's different challenges, but with regards to recruitment and retention, what would be the biggest challenge, you think?
I think when we look, again, at the outcomes that we've had over the past 5 years, salary is always going to be an issue. There's never going to be enough salary. And whether or not we're competitive, that's just the nature of the business. And it's the nature of every business. You know, there is no employer that ever meets the mark of most of its employees. Most of their employees are going to want a little bit more, and maybe rightfully so, maybe not.
But that's when the study is going to be very powerful.
Correct.
Because we've never done that.
Correct, but more to your question, I don't want to say it's been really salary that's been a hard issue. It may be for police and fire, why I drilled down on that data a little bit more than others. Because as you can see, our actual turnover that would be due to laterals is really low. And if we're going to use a factor that's going to inform us as to whether or not employees are leaving us for salary and or quality of life, lateral turnover is the most important factor to keep track of. And as the data shows, our lateral turnover, as compared to all of our types of turnover, is really a small part of our turnover, which tells me we're actually doing very well in terms of quality of life, if in fact employees aren't being paid competitively, or they are being paid competitively and they're getting quality of life. And so I just think recruitment is always going to be difficult. I don't know that we totally have that problem. I think when we do the class and comp study, we will see some positions, probably a good portion of positions, come in under market. And I do think that we'll see some positions come in over market, and then we'll have that small cohort that's going to be right at market. But if we look at the data now, and again, just kind of extrapolating without having all of the information with the class and comp study, I would say probably about a third to maybe a 40% of our position classifications are going to be just below market or maybe a little bit more below market. And the rest will be either at market or above market. But a third is a lot. You know, when we talk about a third or even 40%, I mean, that's not a small number. So it's something that we'll have to address once we get that data back.
Yeah, I think once we do that, we can continue with the discussion. Regarding the hybrid program with our police department, so does our police department have like a separate HR now, like a group that you work with directly, or are you working directly with the chief? How does that work? You talked about this hybrid program.
So the police department has always had a person working in their training and recruitment bureau, and currently that person is Gilbert Lee. And so Gilbert Lee works with HR very closely on all police-related recruitments, and in particular our sworn recruitments. And so Gilbert really helps facilitate the hybrid program. He really drives it. The program in and of itself was carved out by both PD and HR. We sat down and we drafted a program and an offer letter that does almost everything in reverse, knowing that we're taking on a little bit of risk, and then handing it off to our police personnel who work closely with the academies to go out and identify those candidates that they think are high quality that aren't necessarily at this point in time sponsored, and really making a direct offer. Say, look, you're already in the academy, let's make a direct offer, let's suit you up, let's put you on payroll, and then let's start doing the background and all of those other pre-employment things that are so important to do. But while you're in the academy, we're gonna put you through the rigors of pre-employment, And if you pass pre-employment, and if you pass the academy, we're gonna hire, you're gonna be a police officer on the day that you graduate. So again, doing it in, I don't wanna say in reverse, but just kind of a different way of doing it. And it
It's
does.
streamlining, really.
Streamlining, but it does take on a little bit of risk. I mean, but again, I think we've done the analysis, and we think, and I'm confident that the benefits outweigh the risks.
Well, we also have officers who are instructors who are not just seeing these candidates one time, it's throughout the whole educational process. So I think that lowers the risk also.
It does.
So, okay. And then, let's see. I wanted to also know if in the future, if we could have, I mean, one more slide. I know there's so many already, but hate to even ask this, but I am kind of interested in seeing demographics. I mean, I remember the days where, we would walk into City Hall and really didn't represent our community. There's no translation at all. Those days have changed, but I still would like to see more what does our workforce look like? Does it represent our community? And I'm looking at not just ethnicity or language abilities, age. I mean, you did have that retirement schedule, but just to kind of look at, our educational levels, just to kind of look at our workforce just in general. I think it could be very telling too. I think we've made progress, but I would like to see something like that. I know here when your last goal was to continue to champion organizational fairness, equity, and excellence. Are we missing something here? I don't know. Women versus men. What is those percentages? And which kind of leads into the whole DEI program. I know we're a small staff. We're not going to have departments like other organizations have, but I know you do DEI programs. I mean, the one with the bias training, I know that you were going to do that even before it got recommended.
Correct.
I know that was on your list.
And we did implement that.
And you did implement that. But, I like to know more about what kind of DEI do you have or do you plan to have? I know under goals, maybe it falls under that, fairness, equity, and excellence.
That's the purpose of that. I do think that fairness, equity, and excellence does encumber
that's what I thought.
Those principles, and with, again, being competitive. And I think as a philosophy for our department, and I preach this to my staff, I think just really being competitive and impartial in the way that we make decisions and the way that we conduct our recruitments, that in and of itself cures the ill of inequity, because that competitiveness with blinders and evidence-based decision-making, it is really going to cure that ill at the end of the day. When we really do pursue and commit ourselves to hiring the best, it cures all those other ills.
Well, and we hope it does, yeah. And I agree, it has to be evidence-based, not just we feel or we think. But I would like to see so you have the hiring process, but once they're here also, is there ways that we are supporting our workforce that perhaps need a little bit more support? Whether, we're very fortunate we have, I'll point to Mark, he's a legacy. He's got his whole family has been involved in public service, specifically being a city manager. It's a tremendous advantage, but he's very, on his own. He deserves every praise. But there's other individuals that maybe this is their first time in governmental, in municipalities, that can maybe help get some assistance, support. I mean, that falls into training and development also. Yeah. Police officers, same thing. You have some that are vets, some that are not. What kind of support do we need? Because what I have heard is that we need more professional development. Again, you're very small. There's only so much you can do. I think you have it listed here. Develop more, and implement a more robust training and development program. That's going to take money. It's going to take staff. But if there's ways of bringing in people, if you need to bring this back to council, and it's a decision that the council would have to make, But I think all that is really important at different levels. I think it falls into DEI also is, you know, the equity, inclusion, diversity. I think it's all tied together, and I would like to see more along those lines. Not another chart, but just, you know, what are we really doing? And I was happy to see you put it here, but, you know, I don't want another year to go by and we haven't really, you know, committed ourselves. And so I want to commit to you that this is something that's very important to me. And, you know, I'd like to see more about that as opposed to seeing you next year again. So, but overall, thank you so much.
I appreciate
very, very impressive.
I appreciate that, and I agree with your sentiments. And I do agree that it would be nice to have more data in terms of where our employees are coming from. Are they a first-generation graduate of college? I think that's really important, if they want to share that, right? It needs to be voluntary. And so, but I think we can do that with an HRIS system that would help us do that, be more robust and more accurate with that. And actually, NeoGov will help us do that as well, be better at it. So I would expect us to have a little bit more of that information next time.
Just one more question, Mayor. I'm sorry. NeoGov, how long has that been around?
Oh, it's been around for more than 2 decades.
So
It's the norm. It's the norm in local government. If you want to be on the NeoGov platform, and if you want to be in the networking, which is the governmentjobs.com, it's been around for, I want to say, at least 25 years, if not longer.
So why did we just sign up for it?
We had a legacy program here, a legacy software system that we used for many years, I believe probably for about 12, 13 years.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Vice Mayor. Anyone else? Yes, Councilmember Dean.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. So, yeah, it's a great job. It's a lot of statistics at the table for us. Just asking if more job can help, because we have the approved, like Councilmember, a lot of the benefit for the employee. The regular, like medical benefit, it's fine, but for example, tuition reimbursement, if we can have like a percentage and incentive the pay, bilingual pay, and defer compensation plan. So if we have this kind of statistic to provide, I think, so just want to see that this kind of benefit, it's we just recently to approve it. So it's a help for the recruitment, or yeah, that's how hope we can guide it for the future.
That's a great question. And so benefit utilization and really who's utilizing our benefits.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yes.
Will do.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you, Ed.
You're welcome.
Good job. Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome. So, Councilmember Harrington?
I'll keep my comments brief, but it was a good presentation, Edward. I like the data. I mean, it's something that we can hold on to and refer back to. So I like the fact that it's well presented and easy to understand. So thank you. I really appreciate all the effort that went into this.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Harrington. Well, Ann, I just have a couple quick questions. I know that about the public officials E&O.
Yes.
Can you be more specific? And it seems like this is a part of general liability. Which being said that if anyone, is that elected official or public officials make mistake, that will create, it will be considered as a higher risk city that you guys make mistake all the time, so we have increased your premium. Is it the case?
That sounds scarier than it is. It really is about, the best way I can put it is if, as a city staff, if we gave a poor recommendation or a recommendation that caused some type of liability, we're the public officials. When they say public officials, administration, management, if we approved construction plans that had some type of defect, that would be errors and omissions, public officials errors and omissions, because we're providing the wrong information or the wrong direction.
Or if I get into a fight with a resident.
The mayor will bring it's a good question for the E&O. It's include the city council and the commission.
You know, I think that's a question for Keith. Keith, does that actually include city council? I don't know. I would have to look into that. I do know it applies to staff, professional staff. Because I don't know what type of direction council would give the public in terms of like a construction project, a plan,
Yeah,
a plan
I mean,
approval.
City council are not employees,
Right,
and so I'm sure they're defined differently in the policy. I'd have to look at it.
okay,
A lot of what the city council does is absolutely privileged from liability, legislative
Right.
privilege.
right,
So we're really talking about circumstances where they're acting unusually, I guess, in an individual capacity, but yet somehow still
in an official
in an
capacity.
official capacity. So that's a,
But-
there are edge cases we'd have to look at it.
Right, but it mostly applies to staff and giving some type of professional recommendation or direction or
And
something.
even in that case, there are a lot of immunities that could apply for staff.
Correct, correct. And that's why I said it sounds a lot scarier than it probably is. It's important, don't get me wrong, it is important, but,
For example, there's an absolute immunity for issuing permits.
right.
Okay, so what about a property insurance premium? Is that the property insurance premium that includes all the property that owned by our city, for example, Mission Playhouse, Lula Restaurant, and also some of the spaces that we own?
That is correct. It includes all of the property that we decide to put on the property schedule. There may be very few cases where we decide to self-insure something and not put it on the property schedule because it's just not practical or feasible. But for the most part, I believe the vast majority of the city's property and hard assets that apply to the property schedule are on the current property schedule and insured accordingly.
So does that mean that the historical buildings that could pay out more insurance than other, offices, or just because we are older?
I'm not exactly sure how much the payout would be. It would be based on the reconstruction of the actual facility. And the assessment for the property premiums and insurance is based on what the assessor thinks would be the replacement cost for said property. Whether or not it's historical or not, the significance for the assessment of the insurance is based on the replacement value.
I see, okay. Well, thank you very much. It's a good report. I just tried to make it simple and grab all the question from our insurance expert, Councilmember Ding. Well, but anyone else have questions?
So all the insurance will go through the JPIA, right? Include the property insurance too?
Correct,
Okay.
correct.
Technically it's self-insured, right?
Correct. Technically self-insurance, but we're still in the pool. And as I stated earlier, part of our performance factor is based on how well the pool performs as well. If the pool's tide goes up because its performance as a pool isn't doing well, clearly our tide's gonna go up in terms of cost. If the pool's tide goes down, in general as a pool, everybody in the pool benefits from that. That's what they call the smoothing effect. And being in the pool also helps us, again, procure insurance. Being standalone, it is more challenging to procure insurance, and we likely would get less competitive rates in the standalone market, based on where the market is right now. Even if we weren't in the JPIA, we would be in some other type of pool, at least for excess liability. If we wanted to self-insure first dollar out and be totally self-insured, there would be some semblance of insurance at an excess liability level or an excess level where we exhausted our deductible, so to speak, our out-of-pocket, and that would reach like an excess layer. We would still have to go into the insurance market for the excess layer, and being out of a pool would make that very difficult. So for the excess layer, we would still have to be in some type of insurance pool to get a more competitive rate.
It's not, the excess liability, it's not go through the JPI?
Currently, our excess liability is rolled up in our regular premiums. Our first layer and our excess layers are part of our actual premiums.
Still goes through the JPI?
That is correct.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Ed.
You're welcome.
Okay, well, thank you very much. So this presentation is for information only, so there's no action is required. And thank you again for the.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chief, next item, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I have no cards for the second public comment period.
Okay, thank you. And city manager report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I just wanted to, I know that at least 4 of you will talk about this, but just wanted to thank you all for going to the JPIA conference. I enjoy spending time with you.
ICA?
You, Vice Mayor.
ICA, right?
I'm sorry, ICA.
Yeah, I'm still awake. I'm paying attention.
Thank you. We missed you, Vice Mayor Menchaca, but it was great again to see all of my bosses and how you all get along, and watching you get your learn on. And I can attest to the public that you are the hardest workers there. And the 4 of our council members sit there from the beginning to the end 3 days in a row. And I'll just say it's not the case for every other city. So I very much appreciate you all.
Thank you, Mark. And council comments and conference meeting report. So who would like to go first? Yes, Council Member Chen.
Okay, I'll try to make this quick. Since the last time we met on July 3rd, I attended San Gabriel's Independence Day drone show. It was very impressive and well attended, so I hope you all got to go see it. It was very nice. We hope to make it our standard every year and improve on it every year. On the 8th, I attended my monthly Chinese American Citizens Alliance monthly dinner meeting in Monterey Park. On the 11th through the 14th, the aforementioned Independent Cities Association Conference. There were good discussions regarding, encouraging city, some highlights were some discussions about encouraging cities to promote education and some ideas for increasing housing options. And let's see, how some former council members still stay actively involved in and productive in their communities, even after their terms of office have ended. So that was really good stuff. On the 15th, that was just yesterday, special thanks to Mayor Wu. I attended a ribbon cutting ceremony for a partnership between the San Gabriel City and the World Journal and the Taiwan Tourism Board to accept a generous gift from them of beautiful lanterns that we will use in our next Lunar New Year Lantern Festival next February. So again, thank you to Mayor Wu for putting the event together. And that's all I have. I yield my time.
Thank you, Councilmember Chen. Who's next? Yes, Councilmember Ding.
Okay. Yeah, it's really good. Our city have the July 3rd have a first drone show in our Independent Day the celebration, and it thanks staff to do the good job. I hear about almost like near to the 10,000 the attendee, right? 6,000 to maybe 6,000, but almost near to the 10,000. It's so. Yeah, but it's a good job. It's credit to our mayor and the vice mayor. It's have the good announcement, especially the Mayor Wu have the English and Mandarin, Cantonese and Taiwanese too, right? And the Spanish for our vice mayor to give to the attendee how to quickly leave and safety to leave the Gabriel. I community also. It's credit for our city to do the good job. And one thing is I just do a little survey the community. Everybody, even I think the staff too. So 10 minutes is not enough. Most people, they want to like maybe 20 minutes to see. It's really incredible show. It's for our city specialized and keep it to the neighborhood city. Yeah. So maybe we can, Mark, you can bring out, or Rebecca can bring over for the next year to see if we have this kind of budget, you know. Yeah. Yeah, and that's okay. That's for the next year. Okay, and July 7th, I just want to share. I have a couple the event in the community, and the first one it's with our Mayor Wu for the Shilai Temple. They have the Latin help us, especially it's already help us about 2024 the Latin event. So they have called the Veggie Run. It's like they promote the vegetation and then it's similar to our Lions Club called Walk for Health. You know, so they near to their venue. It's called the Chevron Park. Okay, and on the morning after that, I have the event. It's really important for the Chinese community. It's talking about the Marco Polo Bridge. It's talking about the World War II. It's Japanese invasion to China. Okay, so and we during World War II, China and the United States, the people working together against the Japanese invasion. So this meaning it's the freedom and not a free. But that time it's both country, the soldier to sacrifice the life to let us have this kind of the peaceful right now. So every year they do the celebration. It's the organization called the JCUA, and the evening I have two events. One is called the Morning Light Foundation. They hosting their event in the St. Gabriel Hilton. It's regarding the every year they do the kind of donation for the student. Okay, they if they qualify, they can get the scholarship from them. And this year they especially give it to the one student. It's almost 35 years old, and he wanted to continue education. Okay, they also give to them. They give to him the scholarship, and then it's for our Chinese community. It's they hosting in our 5-star the restaurant. It's regarding the acupuncture date. Okay, and it's July 12th. That's like back to 1970 something, and California. It's approved acupuncture will be put on like a Medicare or Medicare the benefit. And this year, it's state legislature. It's just announced that for the future, every year it's July 12th. It's acupuncture day. So yeah, that's the way. It's really like communities really recognize our 1,000 years Chinese culture. It's acupuncture. It's really do something. So sometimes the Western medication you cannot solve, but the acupuncture will be help too, you know. So at the second opportunity, so July 7th, it's a lot of events. So I just July 8th, I glad to mention that I ad hoc committee with the Vice Mayor Denise. We have chance meet called PFLAG. The organization regarding the ad hoc committee, it's really good dialogue to their group. Okay, so for the future, maybe after we have several dialogue, so we can give it to community with our staff Mark to have the good recommendation. Okay. Then, okay, on the July 10, I have a chance to, because I joined the SGB car, they have Montebello Corridor grand opening. Okay, the SGB got a state and the federal $220 million, and let the Alameda Corridor. It's similar to our city before. It's Del Mar and San Gabriel. It's underneath there, but it's a big project. Still take the 4 years. Hopefully, 2028, the Olympic, they can finish this project. And after then, afternoon, I have also attend the sanitation meeting, and the summer still continue have the tour. You can go. I hope maybe staff to help to find out. It's August still. If all the city council or staff member want to they have a tour. You can see the ocean, how they're processing the water. Okay, yeah, and for 12 then 14 I joined ICA in the San Diego. It's really a lot of the good seminar, especially talking about the SB9, how can help our community voice. Okay, and yeah, for the 15, thanks to Mayor Wu, and also thanks to the War Journal, it's have a cooperation with us for the next year, the Lunar Latin Festival. And I saw from the Taiwan tourist administration have how many container, the 3 container, the Latin shipped to our city, and use the Greg to have the space to storage that. Okay, so hopefully I feel I talked to Mark if we can next year we try promote the festival, and in from the Plaza Park or Mission Playhouse to promote this event. Hopefully, the more the attendee to join this 2-day the event. Yeah. So yeah, that's it. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Ding. So who's next?
I have one quick, easy question. August 6th, National Night Out. Are we not having a council meeting? How does that work?
You're correct, Councilman Chen. We will not have a council meeting. We would love to see all of you, as many of you can, at National Night Out at our Mission District, right?
Yeah. Okay. I hope to see everyone there. I'll be there.
Vice Mayor?
Yes, thank you. Let's see. On Sunday, June 14th, we did have, the mayor and I went to Vincent Lugo Park for the first time they've had it here in our city. It's been in Griffith Park before, but they brought here the Nadam Festival, which is a Mongolian celebration. Typically, they call it the manly sports, which included archery and horseback riding. There was only horses, no horseback competition or anything like that. And what was the third one, Mayor? The archery? Wrestling. And it was pretty impressive. Our Vincent Lugo was completely converted into this area. Just had so many people, so many of our Mongolian community, and it was just a nice moment for us to see them coming to our city, and hopefully they continue to come to our city and celebrate this. It's a festival that's the biggest festival that's held in Mongolia.
Did you wrestle?
I did not. I did not.
Come on.
I did present a certificate. That was about as far as I got. And the mayor, we could say more about it. Independence Day celebration, we did have a debrief as part of the ad hoc committee. The mayor and I are on that ad hoc committee. We had about 6,000, but we did have people outside. We just we didn't have enough room to have everybody come in. But the one thing I would have really wanted to highlight is that we had no incidents. We had so many people, and everybody in such an orderly way, left. It was pretty amazing, but because we had numbers that we kind of knew the night before, but to see so many people, there was a great shot that was taken from the rooftop. Regarding the length of time, that's what happens with drones. The batteries are only 12 minutes at most, but we do have some other possibilities, and during our debrief that we talked about, to make it longer, not necessarily with the drone show. I mean, there's maybe some laser show, and then we work into the drone show, but there is limitations for now on the times for the drone, but discussion will continue. Yesterday, we had and it was mentioned before, the San Gabriel Lunar Lantern ribbon cutting. This is going to be pretty amazing, these lanterns. They have different sizes, but we're going to be able to decorate our Mission Drive, our Mission District with these amazing lanterns. And I can see it, I'm looking at it from not only the fact that it's going to be a cultural moment, we're going to be learning about why the lanterns are so important, but also it's Instagrammable. I can see the kids, the little ones, the big ones, just wanting to take pictures with these, they're art pieces, literally. These lanterns are just so beautiful. And we also got coverage, ABC, I think KMBC, Telemundo, I did an interview with them, and then the Pasadena Star News were just some of the few, not few, but lots of media that came to our, was it ribbon cutting? No, it was unveiling. So I just want to give a little shout out to Matthew and Jessica and Marilyn and Nancy. They all brought it together, and it was a very nice celebration. And I'll let the mayor talk a little bit more about that. And that's it, because I think everything else has been mentioned. Thanks.
Well, thank you, Vice Mayor and Councilmember Harrington.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to just give a little more detail about the IC. I think it was a great conference this time. Two of the things I think that were highlights for me was the AI and how we can use it, and the way we can enter. We don't have to enter like as a giant investment. A lot of stuff is available. It overlays our existing data. And really what it does is it takes huge amounts of data and makes it useful to us. And it's not like some of these things where we have to buy a giant infrastructure. It's open, it's already there. It's just, we have to learn how to apply it. And so that was a really good, I would say just a really good entry level, just analysis of what some of the things we can do. I know like at work, we already have an AI policy, and we already use it for some things. Because we deal with a lot of data. Kelly County deals with a lot of data. And it's amazing where I can just ask a question in normal language, and it will say, oh, there's this. And the computer just answers you. You can ask some really crazy questions. And how many people of our members do this? And it's bam, it just goes right. Whereas if you asked that question years ago, it might take weeks to get an answer, where now it's 10 to 12 seconds. It processes things. So we can easily use that here. It's not a huge barrier of entry. It's just, I think if we do something like that, it would obviously be a policy, and you need to have parameters on it, what it can and can't be used for. But it was a really great presentation as far as the possibilities. And of course, we hit SB 9, which Keith's firm did a great job of winning. So we appreciate your firm on that. So thank you. One for the charter cities. It was particular to charter cities, but it is at least showing that when cities do stand up for their rights, they can win even against the state. So that's why I'm always harping on that. It's like, just because the state says something is okay doesn't mean we have to agree with that. The other one that I thought really stood out was the cybersecurity and the foreign influence. The FBI did a great presentation. And just, it opens your eyes to things that as council members we may not think of as, oh, that's really not right. there are concerted efforts out there to get us to use our power to basically help foreign governments or spread misinformation or, just corruption even, if it goes that far. But it was some things where if you don't talk about it, you never really think about it. Even amongst ourselves, we don't day to day think about, am I being influenced by someone or something? Maybe it's just psychological influence. It could be, there are all kinds of different types of influence they spoke about. But that was really eye-opening and something that I think brings value to us as council members to our community, because the more we're aware of some of these schemes and the ways that foreign and malign interests try to use local, state, and federal power, the more we're aware of it, the more we can prevent it and hopefully not fall trap to it. And then there was quite a few more that were really interesting, but I would say another one that kind of held my attention was the RENA and kind of how different cities are dealing with it. And I can just tell you, every city has the same complaints. And it's just funny how we all complain individually, but like SB 9, if we're not proactive and on the offense instead of the defense, it can really be one city versus the state, one city versus the state. And inevitably, you're going to fall like dominoes. If all the cities get together, and we're not lined up like dominoes, then it's not the same fight. It's the cities are saying, you're giving us an unfunded mandate. And that's the big words that they keep trying to say. It's a statewide concern, so unfunded mandates don't apply. And then they tell us, you have to do all these things and that are going to cost you a lot of money. But it's not, it's funded, but it's because it's an emergency. We don't have to give you any money for it. You have to fund it out of your general fund. So it's not unfunded, it's just funded from your general fund, not from our mandate. So that was kind of nice to hear the way it was proposed. I really enjoyed that. But overall, the conference was good, and like Mark said, we all attend, and there are some cities where you see kind of people come in and out and never back in, and it's good to see that we have a very strong attendance, and I think we won second place for the most attendance. We only had 5. We could have won with 6. No, but it was good. It was nice to see. And then the next item, we did have public comment tonight, and I did talk to Mark about this after we received an email. And I actually would like to take kind of the temperature of my fellow council members to discuss not only just the hedge. I mean, that's one thing. But I've had this pet peeve for the entire time I've been on council. We've been, as a city, very reactive to, I would say, community issues rather than proactive. And this goes back to our code just kind of being really old. And once we do finally ever get a code update and a general plan update and all these lovely things that we've always discussed, I think a lot of this gets ironed out. But I would like to have that discussion on the hedge height that Mr. Krupman brought up. Because I've read through it very carefully. Some of the things do make sense, but some of the things don't. And the one thing that always gets me is unequal enforcement. Because when you're reactive, it's only going to be complaints. So my kind of thing with codes is if it's good for one property, it's good for all properties. It shouldn't be like, okay, this one gets singled out and we're going to let 10 others not, just kind of slide. So if something's good at one time for one property, it should be good for everybody at all times. And I would proffer that if we try to enforce this on every property in San Gabriel, we would have pitchforks and torches down here in City Hall with hundreds of people complaining about it. We just happen to have only one tonight, but I mean, because that's the only one that was getting enforced. So I'd really like to have that discussion if the council would like to agendize that.
I'll support that.
I will.
Thank you.
Actually, not just this public comment. This is talking about high, but there's some I know that resident is complain the lower, too lower.
Yeah, there's other items too.
Yeah.
This is just one that happened to come up. I talked to Mark about this. I'm not making this proposal, but I talked to him about having some sort of committee, not a commission, some sort of committee, kind of as oversight or to, you know, I told Mark I wanted residents and possibly a council member or some high-level staff, from the executive team to really take a look and rather than being adversarial, just kind of like, why are we doing this? Is it something that's really that important? Because we always say it's health and safety, and then that's the extent of the analysis. We don't say, well, what's the risk? What's the mitigation to that risk? You know, is it really that big of a safety health issue, or are we just saying it's in our zoning code, therefore it's health and safety, and that's the extent of our analysis? So I would like to have some sort of, input into that, because something like this could be possibly resolved in a lower level, no fines being issued, that. My thing is to avoid fines all the time if we can. That's the last resort from the city. We really look bad when we fine our residents, but it has to be done sometimes. But if people are trying to be reasonable and are trying to give at least some semblance of compliance, we should always extend that hand and say, hey, we'll do the best we can, no guarantees.
I was going to recommend that we might want to consider our commissions also, Planning Commission, because they see things that don't always come to us, or Design Review Commission. I mean, those are really good resources, and they go through the plans very in detail, and getting, a core group of those, 2 and 2 and 2, I think we can really get some really good feedback.
So we are all okay with this, right? Okay, great.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, good. Well, okay, so I will just make it really quick. I don't want to really repeat, thank you so much, my colleagues. That has been, your compliments, and I really appreciate our teamwork. But I just give you a little bit of things about the Mongolian Day that we have attended last Sunday. The first time I attended their Nadam, N-A-A-D-A-M, which is their big days for the Mongolian community, was on July 8th, 2023, when that was taking place in Griffith Park, Los Angeles. But I really want to give a big shout out to our city manager, Mark, because on April 1st, the Consulate General from Mongolia, they came to visit us in this city, and with the LA Mongolian community president. So we actually had a discussion about how we can make the Nadam happen in our city. And also I want to say thank you very much for our city staff. Rebecca, we have Julie from finance and from Eldo, that helping them to get the necessary permits. So they were able to having the very first Nadam celebration in our city. So we're not just talking, but we want to make our city become our city become an international brand. And also about the press conference, thank you so much for my colleagues that joined us and support us. This is very generous for Taiwan Tourism Administration, that they are not only donate, I would say gift us the lanterns that was all 3 containers, but also I want to emphasize that because there's no cost to us, even 1 penny. They actually shipped it to us, and they cleared the custom for us, and they just send it to door to our public works, and non-pennies from our city. And we really appreciate it, and I believe that those lanterns we receive will make our next Lantern Festival a great one. And next year, on February 12th, the Taiwan Lantern Festival will be taking place in Taoyuan City. And I would like to invite my colleagues, because that is the time we can pick our, lanterns that you like. So if we are able to just travel and just enjoy the Lantern Festival, which has already been 35, 36 years, and we have the privilege to pick the one we like, so they can ship it to us for another great Lantern Festival in the city of St. Gabriel. I would say I will be heading to Taipei tomorrow, and for the sister city signing ceremony, and also visiting several cities, including Hualien County, that they came to visit us just like 2 months ago. I will just bring you more good news when I resume to town. And I really appreciate that all my colleagues for your support. And it's my personal privilege that we can serve the city together. I think that's all my comments. In the closed session, we have none. So next regular city council meeting will be held on Tuesday, August 20, 2024 at 6:30 p.m. And meeting adjourned at 10:04 p.m. Thank you.